Listening to GWP Live Severe Weather Coverage. It is Saturday, July 4th, 2026, and it is now 12:19 p.m. Central Daylight Time, and we are joining you live to bring you all the latest information that you need to know on some severe storms that are moving through our viewing area. So we've got two severe thunderstorm warnings from a complex of storms that has traveled all the way from Kansas into now Missouri here and is now affecting our viewing areas. Let's go ahead and get the latest information that we know here on these storms as they are now plowing through our local viewing areas. So we've got two severe thunderstorm warnings that remain in effect for the main listening area. We have this one right up here on the northern side, just to the south of Kansas City. This goes for Miami, Lynn, and Johnson counties in Kansas, Cass, Henry, Bates, Jackson, and Johnson counties in Missouri until 12:45 p.m. A severe thunderstorm warning. At 11:57 a.m., severe thunderstorms were located along a line extending from near Lewisburg to near Lynn Valley to near Fulton, moving east at about 60 miles per hour. So these storms are moving very fast and have definitely gained intensity with them as they move. Those are going to be the main threats out of this storm. So the hail is going to be non-severe out of this storm, but still some very strong straight line winds are going to be possible. Expect damage to roof sidings and trees. Locations impacted include Overland Park, Lee Summit, Grandview, Belton, Raymore, Gardner, Harrisonville, Pleasant Hill, Paola, Spring Hill, Greenwood, Peculiar, as into Lewisburg, Butler, Holden, Adrian, as well as Rich Hill. This includes Interstate 35 in Kansas between mile markers 202 and 211, and Interstate 49 between mile markers 118 and 117. So again, a radar indicated threat for 60 mile per hour winds, as well as, again, some small hail is going to be possible out of this storm. So these, the strongest of the winds are likely now moving into Butler, Adrian, and Archie along Interstate 49, extending up into the Belton and Raymore area. Some of those straight line winds are going to be possible, and they will continue to move further towards the east here, eventually moving towards Garden City, Creighton, and Yurch along Highway 7, as well as into Kingville and Holden, as well as into Pleasant Hill along US 54. So those areas under a severe thunderstorm warning. Again, the main risk is going to be 60 mile per hour winds, but some small hail is also going to be possible. We've also got another severe thunderstorm warning a little bit further to the south that includes Fort Scott in Nevada. Severe thunderstorm warning in effect. This one now goes until 1 p.m. Severe thunderstorm warning. This one goes for 60 mile per hour winds and quarter size hail. So a little bit of a higher hail threat, especially on this northern hail core just to the south of Hume. We've got some large hail, potentially some hail moving through the Fort Scott area right now. So again, you'll want to take shelter from that. So hail damage to vehicles is expected. Wind damage to roof sidings and trees will be possible. This is for Bourbon and all of Bourbon County, Kansas, and all of Vernon County, Missouri is under this warning till 1 p.m. for 60 mile per hour winds and quarter size hail. So again, hail damage to vehicles, wind damage to roof sidings and trees. Locations impacted include Nevada, Fort Scott, Marmington, Sheldon, Bronson, Montevallo, Uniontown, Walker, Shell City, Bernal, Fulton, Redfield, Moundville, Richards, and Milo and Deerfield. So those areas under a severe thunderstorm warning. Again, 60 mile per hour winds and quarter size hail are going to be the main threats out of this storm here. Let's go ahead and we'll move over to reflectivity on our. Just one second here. There we go. Reflectivity here shows us that, again, we've got a storm moving towards Fort Scott. We've got these bowing winds right in here in northwestern Vernon County. Let's go over to velocities. We're getting a little bit of rotation right in there. Let me look at this for just a second here. Again, a lot of this is new information that we're getting to you. And I see a hook echo right there. That doesn't always necessarily mean that we have rotation. I will say the winds have significantly picked up here where I'm located at in Vernon County. And yeah, there's a little bit of rotation out of this on the northeast side of Fort Scott. We have to watch this very closely. I don't see any damage so far out of this storm, but there's certainly some rotation that is showing up for us around Fort Scott, on the northeast side of Fort Scott. Watch this storm very closely. Again, we don't have we don't have a warning per se for a tornado on this storm, but certainly something we want to watch very closely. These storms are moving very quickly, and again, there has been just a little bit of rotation right there out of this hook that we've been watching. Let's see. It looks like we got a new scan on the radar. We'll see if anything still hasn't updated on here just yet. But yeah, so a little bit of a hook right there. But again, our main concern is going to be straight line winds, which oh wow, yes, we're definitely getting some pretty strong winds right in here in northern Vernon County right now. Certainly showing up there on the velocities. Let's see if I can estimate these wind speeds. The radar is estimating Wow, the radar is estimating potentially 60 to 70 mile per hour winds. I'm even seeing some 80 mile per hour winds. Now, this is high up in the atmosphere, so likely once it reaches the surface, it's probably 60 to 70 miles per hour based on what we're looking at. So 60 mile per hour winds, quarter size hail. But again, based on some of these returns that we're getting on the velocity, I would not be surprised if we had even stronger winds out of the storm than 60 miles per hour. I think 60 miles per hour really may be a little bit on the lower side. Okay, we're also looking at some hail potential out of this storm. Certainly right there. There's our big hail core right there. South of Hume, southwest of Rich Hill, northwestern Vernon County. Looks like we could be looking at some pretty significant hail right now. All right, let's check our storm up here. So a little bit of hail showing up near Harrisonville. Southwest of Harrisonville, we've got a little bit of hail that's showing up around Adrian as well. So yeah, a couple of different areas where we are looking at the potential at least for some large hail out of this storm. All right, well, we will now go into a brief intermission. We will return at the bottom of the hour at 12:30. This is GWP Live Severe Weather Coverage. Don't go anywhere. And we are back here on GWP Live's ongoing severe weather coverage here. It is July 4th, America's 250th birthday, but we are tracking some strong to severe storms that are moving through the viewing area. So it is now 12:30 p.m. We've got a couple of severe thunderstorm warnings that remain in effect across our listening areas. Let's go ahead and get the latest information on these storms here. Yeah, we also just had a flash flood warning that was issued on the south side of Kansas City. This goes for Harrisonville, Belton. Flash flooding has been reported by emergency management around the Hillsdale area. Between 1 and 2 inches of rain have already fallen across that region. That doesn't sound like a lot, but it's happened in a very short period of time. Plus, the ground was already pretty saturated from some storms that we've had the last couple of weeks, too. So that's part of the reason why. So that was a new warning that we had issued, but we still have, and we also had this severe thunderstorm warning was upgraded in Bourbon and Vernon County. Bourbon County, Kansas, Vernon County, Missouri. That warning has been upgraded just a little bit. So let's go ahead and look at this storm here. We've already had some pretty strong winds that have been reported out ahead of these storms on the south side of Nevada, likely around 50 to 60 miles per hour. That would be what I observed outside my window, so I can confirm that these storms are definitely producing some strong gusty winds. I don't know that we reach 60 miles per hour where I'm located at, but I definitely think that gust front produced at least 40 to 50 mile per hour gust, maybe close to 60. But the warning has been upgraded in Bourbon and Vernon County. We're now looking at the potential for 70 mile per hour winds, and then also the public has reported quarter-sized hail out of this storm. So there's an observed tag and a considerable threat tag with this storm. So quarter-sized hail was reported near the Fort Scott area, which we were observing that here moments ago on the radar here. And so now we actually have confirmation that that is starting to happen. So again, quarter-size hail and 70 mile per hour winds are going to be the main concern. Hail damage to vehicles is possible. Considerable tree damage, likely going to be looking at damage to mobile homes, roofs, and outbuildings. Locations impacted include Nevada, Fort Scott, Marmington, Sheldon, Bronson, Montevallo, Uniontown, Walker, Shell City, Bernal, Redfield, Moundville, Richards, and Milo, as well as into Deerfield. So 70 mile per hour winds and some quarter-size hail. Let's see. Let's go over to the velocities and look at some of the winds that we're dealing with. So it's not really being picked up here, but we did have some pretty strong winds, again, on the south side of Nevada where I'm located at. So yeah, we've definitely had some strong winds out of this storm. Now, I don't believe that they were at severe levels. So let's go ahead and look for specific areas that, this really jumps out right here. Some pretty strong winds on the north side of Nevada. Let me go ahead and get some radar estimated amounts or wind speeds here. I'm getting radar estimates at about 40 to 50 miles per hour. So it appears, a minute ago we were getting readings at 60 to 80 miles per hour. Now again, this is a little bit in elevation where these radar beams are detecting these wind speeds, but we were getting 80 mile per hour winds by the radar. So 80 mile per hour winds in the atmosphere probably is going to be at about 70 mile per hour winds once they actually reach the surface. So that makes sense as to why the National Weather Service there in Springfield upgraded this warning to a considerable threat, 70 mile per hour wind speed threat. So again, we've had some wind speeds around Interstate 49. I'm still picking up radar estimated wind speeds of around 55 miles per hour. Now, we briefly had a little bit of broad rotation near Fort Scott out of this storm. That was another thing that we were watching right here on the south side of the storm. So we were originally watching for that, but I'm no longer seeing that. So again, we had some brief mid-level rotation, but that hasn't really turned into anything too serious yet. So that's good news, and we don't really have that anymore out of this storm. So realistically, the threat has gone down just a little bit in the last 10 minutes. Part of that has to do with the fact that we've had this gust front that's come through. Typically, anytime that we get a gust front, that means that the storm is on a weakening trend because the stronger winds are actually being separated from the storm. Anytime any time in weather that you have a storm that's separating from itself, like the hazards are moving ahead of the actual storm, that's actually a really good sign. Just like when we're dealing with a hurricane, if the convection gets separated from the center of circulation, like the eye, I guess we'll say, if the convection gets separated from the eye, that means it's weakening. The same thing applies here with straight line winds. When the straight line winds are getting further and further out ahead of the storm, that means that it's usually on a weakening trend because that gust front is it's cooling itself off. It is essentially what's happening. And so that's exactly what we have happening out of these storms right now, which is a really good sign. That shows that these storms will likely continue to be on a weakening trend over the next hour or so. Now, can they re-strengthen? They certainly can. It can cycle back through and we can see, potentially still these storms on a strengthening trend. That could certainly still happen. We've also got this warning a little bit further to the north here across really on the south side of Kansas City is really where we've got this here. Severe thunderstorm warning remains in effect for about another 9 minutes for Bates, Henry, Jackson, and Johnson counties, as well as Cass County, southern Cass County, till 12:45 p.m. So again, another 10 minutes we've got this warning, 60-mile-per-hour winds and nickel-sized hail. So hail is not as big of a concern as the strong winds that we could be dealing with out of this storm here. We did have a warning for our eastern counties in Kansas, our western counties in the viewing area, but eastern Kansas, those have now been able to expire. The only Kansas warning that we have is that one in Bourbon County till 1 p.m. So we no longer have those counties under this warning, but we still have on the Missouri side Cass, Henry, Bates, Jackson, and Johnson counties for 60-mile-per-hour winds and some small hail. So at 12:23 p.m., severe thunderstorms were located along a line extending from near Baldwin Park to 8 miles east of Adrian to near Rich Hill, moving east at 60 miles per hour. So damage to roofs, sidings, and trees are going to be possible. Locations impacted include Lee Summit, Grandview, Belton, Raymore, Harrisonville, Pleasant Hill, Greenwood, Peculiar, Butler, Holden, Adrian, Garden City, Rich Hill, Archie, and Lake Winnebago. Yurch is also under this warning. So this includes Interstate 49 between mile markers 118 and 177. So if you are traveling across this area, some straight line damaging winds are going to be possible, although the worst of the winds, when we look here at the radar, are now moving through Garden City, Yurch, as well as into Creighton. So most likely we've already kind of moved out of that Interstate 49 corridor, but still some very heavy rain and potentially some hail is going to be possible with some of these storms here. So again, here's some of those stronger winds. Let's go ahead and see if we can get some estimate on these wind speeds. Right now, the strongest winds, I believe, are going to be around the Garden City area. Let's see what we're getting. Okay, radar estimates 20 to 30. Okay, not too bad here. Harrisonville, winds are not too bad there. Yeah, I'm not seeing anything too bad right now out of these wind speeds right now. I'm not seeing anything really at severe threshold. Yeah, I'm not seeing a whole lot right now. So that is good news. It appears that maybe this storm has weakened quite a bit based on the fact that we're no longer getting 60-mile-per-hour winds. It appears that we're no longer seeing that. So that is some good news. All right, we just had a new severe thunderstorm warning that was issued, a downstream severe thunderstorm warning, as we call it, because it's on the same storm. It's just ahead of the storm to give people a little bit of warning time here. Let's see okay, so we're still having some issues getting that pulled up for you. So let's go ahead and see where we're at on this new warning. New warning was issued for Cedar and St. Clair, but also Vernon County. So Vernon County, you have now been extended under the warning until 1:30 p.m. But it now includes Cedar and St. Clair counties as well until 1:30 p.m. Here's the latest. At 12:35 p.m., severe thunderstorms were located along a line extending from 7 miles northwest of Shell City to near Nevada to 7 miles northeast of Arcadia, moving southeast at 35 miles per hour. Now, this is an important note, and I'm so glad that the National Weather Service in Springfield, Missouri put this in their description. Damaging winds will arrive 10 to 20 minutes before the rain even falls. In fact, just like what we've seen here where I'm located at, we haven't seen any rainfall yet, but the wind has already calmed down. So the winds are going to clear out before the actual thunderstorm moves in. And so just because you get those strong winds that move in doesn't mean that you're not going to see any rainfall. The rain and the storms are going to be a little bit later. And again, that has to do with the fact that we're dealing with a gust front. The winds, the strong straight line winds, are ahead of the actual storm. And so you might look on the radar and think you're good for another 10 or 30 minutes, but the storm is going to make it there, or the winds are going to make it there before the actual storm is going to make it. So the winds are going to arrive basically with little or no warning, simply because they're so far out ahead of the main line of severe storms. So we're looking at Stockton Lake, Truman Lake, Nevada, El Dorado Springs, Stockton, Appleton City, Osceola, Lowry City, Sheldon, Walker, Shell City, Bernal, Jericho Springs, Collins, and Moundville, all under this new warning. Again, it goes for Vernon County. It's an extension off of the previous warning, and then now it also includes Cedar as well as into St. Clair counties. So this continues until 1:30 p.m. So again, we're looking at 70-mile-per-hour winds. It is a radar indicated threat, but there's also a considerable threat tag with this severe thunderstorm warning. So again, you'll want to take this very seriously, as again, we are going to be looking at the possibility of some very strong winds here across the area. Let's go ahead and we'll go back to the area where we're seeing those winds. So again, the actual winds have been separated from the storm itself. So probably our winds are right in here, if I had to guess. Based on we're getting a little bit of reflectivity. So I really think the strongest of the winds are all the way out here, even though the actual storm itself is all the way back here. Something else we're noticing here, look at this hail on the north side of Nevada right there. Let's see, is that what I'm seeing correctly? Okay, we're not seeing as much here when we look at the radar classification here, the hydrometer classification. We're not seeing as much there, but it looks like we have a very strong, or right here. Okay, I was in the wrong spot. There it is, south of Ridge Hill. Sorry about that. I was pointing out the wrong spot here for a second. I was looking at the wrong thing. Right here on, yeah, right in there around Ridge Hill. Certainly seeing some hail showing up here. I was circling this area. It's really more up here. That's where we've got some of that stronger hail right in here around Ridge Hill. Of course, Ridge Hill has pretty big celebration today for America's 250th birthday. It's an all-day celebration, which means it's probably being interrupted right now by some of these storms. So I will tell you this is not the only round of storms that we're going to have today. This is just round one. Now, not everybody is going to see the second or third round, but this is just the first round of storms that we're going to see. And really, we didn't anticipate these storms making it this far. Most of the forecast had these storms not making it to Missouri. So that was kind of a surprise. That being said, some of these storms could stabilize the atmosphere enough to where we don't have enough instability to get severe thunderstorms later this evening. So this actually could be a blessing in disguise. The severe winds and the severe storms that we're dealing with now could actually make the environment not favorable enough to get storms this evening when most of the celebrations are going to occur for tonight. So that is potentially one of the good things that could come out of this. All right, we also just want to let you know we had a new warning that was issued, so we need to get to that here. These storms are moving very quickly, and again, the strong winds that are actually causing the damage are actually out ahead of the main storm. So there's the new warning that's been issued. It includes this portion of Vernon County right here, but also into Cedar and St. Clair counties. So we've got Missouri State Highway 13, State Highway 32, 39, 97, and then of course US 54 being impacted by this storm. Alright, so there's the new warning that was just issued and includes Warrensburg and Sedalia. Let's get the latest on this here. Severe thunderstorm warning now goes in effect for Cass, Henry, Bates, Pettis, Saline, Jackson, and Johnson counties until 1:30 p.m. Newly issued. At 12:40 p.m., severe thunderstorms were located along a line extending from near Kingsville to near Yurch to 6 miles southeast of Shell City, moving east at 65 miles per hour. These storms are going highway speed. So 60-mile-per-hour wind gusts and penny-sized hail are going to be the main threats. and we have an observed tag on the storm as the public has reported these storms being severe. All right. We're looking at locations impacted: Sedalia, Warrensburg, Harrisonville, Clinton, Pleasant Hill, Greenwood, Windsor, Knob Noster, Holden, Garden City, Sweet Springs, Whiteman Air Force Base, Lamonte, Lake Winnebago, Lone Jack, Leeton, Yurton, Green Ridge, Calhoun, and Deepwater. Now under a severe thunderstorm warning for 60-mile-per-hour winds. Again, this remains in effect now until 1:30 p.m. So again, still looking at the potential for strong straight line damaging winds. Let's go over to the velocities, and you'll see that we're still getting some winds here that are now moving into Medford as well as into Blairstown, and then these will soon be moving into Chilloughby and into Shawnee Mound as well. So let me go ahead and draw it out for you. Here is, let's try that again here. Let's do this in a color that shows up a little bit more on this radar. Right in there, that's where we've got this Boeing segment. Again, 60-mile-per-hour winds are going to be possible out of these storms right here as they continue to make their way further towards the east. So again, a new warning has now been issued. By the way, the old warning that was in effect for Bates and Cass counties and has now in Bates, Cass, and Johnson counties, that one has now expired. But again, now we've seen an extension on this severe thunderstorm warning until 1:30 p.m. for 60-mile-per-hour winds. And there's the straight line winds that we could be seeing out of this storm. All right, now I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to look at a few things over here on my radar, and I'm going to see if we have anything new. Looks like we're running into some technical difficulties, potentially due to the storms on my other radar. So we'll go ahead and we'll come back over here. And so again, that's where we're dealing with some of the strong straight line winds as they continue to move further towards the east. We can go over to reflectivity. So again, there's that Boeing segment. Again, the strong winds are going to be on the leading edge of the storm, or potentially even out ahead of the storm. And so that's what makes these storms a little bit more, dangerous, in the sense that most people are not really going to see them coming until the winds have already hit the area that's being impacted. All right, something else that we've seen develop recently, we've had a few isolated storms around Springfield. I mean, the severe potential is going to be there today across all of our viewing areas. So we'll have to watch these storms as we go through the rest of today across Interstate 44. Looks like we've also had a storm recently develop to the south of Jefferson City. That one currently moving through just to the southwest of Jefferson City. So we'll see what happens out of that storm. We've got some showers that continue to roll through across Kansas City. So Kansas City, you're currently not under any warnings, but we are dealing with some heavy amounts of rainfall. Unfortunately, yes, that could be impacting some of your 4th of July plans. Okay, we also just had a new severe thunderstorm warning issued north of Wichita, so potentially looking at another round of strong storms behind this current round that we're dealing with here across the viewing area. Okay, we also have a severe thunderstorm watch that remains in effect for the counties in pink. Now, what's interesting here is it doesn't include these warnings over here. These are these counties. This is an extreme heat warning. This area over here is where we have the severe thunderstorm watch in place. So Columbia, you're in the pink, but you're in the darker pink, which is an extreme heat warning. The lighter pink is a severe thunderstorm watch. So the light pink is where we have a severe thunderstorm watch that remains in effect until 7 p.m. Yeah, 7 p.m. Let's go ahead and show you what we've got from the Storm Prediction Center on this watch here. So again, new severe thunderstorm watch. Tornado threat is very low. I want to point that out. Tornado threat, very low. Not going to be a really big concern. Severe winds are going to be the big concern, as well as hail, which is going to be a little bit of a lower threat. But overall, the tornado risk is very low. In fact, I don't want to say that it's non-existent, but it's very well possible that we don't see a tornado today across the viewing area. In fact, I think it's very possible. So let's see. Severe thunderstorm watch till 7 p.m. this evening for scattered damaging winds of 70 miles per hour, as well as some large hail. So 1.5 inches in diameter. That's the kind of hail that we could be looking at out of some of these storms. So not quite golf ball size hail, but just a little bit under golf ball size hail is what we're going to be dealing with out of some of these storms. So again, 1.5 inches in diameter. So again, this is going to be for that cluster of thunderstorms that will continue to move through as we go through the rest of this afternoon. So this watch mainly goes for this complex of storms right here that's been producing the 60-mile-per-hour winds and the quarter-sized hail. But again, later today, it's going to be possible that we see some additional watches and some additional thunderstorms. This may not be the only round of storms that we get today. We're also going to have to watch these individual supercell thunderstorms that are going to develop out ahead of the main line of storms. And then we've got these storms around Springfield, again, a couple of storms near Jefferson City, St. Louis as well. So again, multiple rounds of severe storms are going to be possible as we go through later today. We also need to watch these storms that are just now starting to develop in Kansas. All right, let's look at some other weather alerts that we have here across the country. We've got the heat. That's going to be the big story today along Interstate 95, but we're also dealing with a severe storm threat today across the big cities in the Northeast as well. So we could be looking at some disruptions later tonight with some of those fireworks displays there along Interstate 95. So we've got plenty of heat alerts, severe thunderstorm watches also in Illinois and Indiana. We really have a bunch of areas that are going to be dealing with severe weather. So Indiana, Illinois, that's just another one of the areas that are going to be seeing the impacts today. We also have a very low fire risk today across Oregon and into Washington. Red flag warnings in effect. Air quality alerts in Colorado from some of the ongoing wildfires, and then extreme heat watches as it's going to get pretty hot next week into Arizona, even for desert standards. All right, so again, heat wave and severe storms this Independence Day. That's the main story from the National Weather Service. That's the big story for today. These are the different weather alerts from the National Weather Service. This, of course, the National Weather Service radar that we've been looking at here. And here's our big threat. This from the National Weather Service in Springfield, Missouri, their weather story. Springfield office. Again, slight risk for severe weather across the entire viewing area. Columbia, Jefferson City, Sedalia, Clinton, Harrisonville, Kansas City, you're under that marginal risk. So it's a little bit lower, but everybody has a severe weather risk. The timing is going to be from now until about 4 a.m., but I really think our main storms are going to be from about now until about 10 or 11 p.m. I think after 10 or 11 p.m., our main severe weather threat is going to be over. But again, 60 to 70 mile per hour winds, that's going to be the big threat out of these storms today, but also looking at some frequent lightning and some localized flooding. So again, remain weather aware as we go into this afternoon and evening. So again, we've still got those heat alerts that remain in effect. Kansas City, these have now expired. Everybody, these will be expiring at 8 p.m. And really, once the storms move through, your heat threat is really going to kind of drop off. So that's really the good news for those that are under those heat alerts, or those that are under the severe alerts, is because those will start to clear out. The main threat will be clearing out. So again, severe storms today, winds are going to be the biggest threat. Tornado risk is mainly going to stay across southern Kansas, not really in our viewing area. But again, 60 to 70 mile per hour wind gusts, some flooding and some lightning is going to be possible. Timing out these storms. So again, we've got currently storms in eastern Kansas. Those will continue to move through our western and northern counties. Eventually, our northern eastern counties, Jefferson City, Columbia, eventually those areas will likely see these storms, depending on if these storms are able to hold together. So again, we've got a severe weather threat this afternoon for this area right here. And this remains until about 4 p.m. Then, later this evening, starting at around 5 or 6 p.m., we've got an additional round of storms across our southern counties, including Lebanon, Rolla, over to Bolivar, Springfield, Joplin, Nevada. Those areas will have a severe weather threat between 6 p.m. and midnight, with main threats being 60-mile-per-hour winds, as well as large hail of up to quarters. So again, we've got a couple of rounds of severe storms. The first round is going to mainly be for our northern counties, warnings between now and about 4 p.m. And our second round starts around 5 or 6 p.m. and it's going to continue until about midnight. So again, we've got multiple rounds of severe storms, and then yes, there is another round of severe storms later tonight across northern Arkansas and southern Missouri, but that is not for our viewing area. So again, our main severe weather threat will be over at around midnight. In fact, it'll probably be over a little bit sooner than that, around 10 or 11 p.m. All right, we're about to go to intermission, but before we do, we want to remind you that we still have severe thunderstorm warnings in effect until 1:30 p.m. for Cass, Henry, Bates, Pettis, Saline, Jackson, and Johnson counties. That goes until 1:30, and then still severe thunderstorm warnings remain in effect for Cedar, St. Clair, and Vernon counties until 1:30 p.m. for 70-mile-per-hour winds. There's a considerable threat tag with that storm. All right, well, we will now move into our next brief intermission. This is GWP Live Severe Weather Coverage. Don't go anywhere. And we are back here on GWP Live's ongoing severe weather coverage. It is now 1 p.m. here on this 4th of July holiday, this Saturday afternoon, and we are tracking some of the ongoing severe storms here across the viewing area. We've just had a few additional severe thunderstorm warnings that have been issued, as well as some flash flood warnings. Let's go ahead and get the latest information that we know here on these warnings here. So we'll go ahead and get a quick update here on the radar. So again, Warrensburg, Sedalia, now under that severe thunderstorm warning. Warrensburg recently went under a flash flood warning as well. Let's see what we've got here on this flash flood warning. Radar indicated threat for Cass, Henry, and Johnson counties till 5 p.m. So if you're going to be traveling to maybe the fireworks store to pick up some last minute supplies, maybe you're traveling to the store. Maybe you're in charge of getting all of the food and everything, buying everything at the store, getting last minute things. So if you are going to be traveling, understand that we've had quite a bit of rainfall across the area, and there could be some flooding out there on the roadway. So again, 1.5 inches of rain have already fallen. So again, flash flooding will be possible across Warrensburg, Harrisonville, Pleasant Hill, Windsor, Knob Noster, Holden, Garden City, Whiteman Air Force Base, Leeton, Calhoun, Creighton, Chilloughby, as well as into Kingsville and Baldwin Park. Whiteman Air Force Base is also under this flash flood warning. So, we also had a new warning that was just issued for Wabalo and into Hermitage. I was just getting an alert about that here. Let's see if we can get the latest on that warning. Okay, so we're still having some issues getting that up here, but we will have that for you momentarily. But again, a new warning has now been extended into Warsaw and Hermitage, where these storms will continue to move further towards the east. And again, the big story today, the big takeaway that I want you to get out of this live stream is that we are seeing severe storms out ahead, or we're seeing strong straight line winds out ahead of the actual rain and thunderstorms themselves. So waiting to hear thunder is not really going to help you in this situation. I was just looking here in the live chat. We had a comment saying I was power washing and got blasted by wind. That's exactly what's going to happen. These winds are going to come out of nowhere. So once you get the warning, you need to move inside, because again, these straight line winds will come at you very quickly and you won't really have a whole lot of notice. And so that's the important thing to understand about these storms. That's what makes these storms a little bit different than the storms that we typically see here in Missouri. Typically you think that as long as you're inside by the time the thunder roars, then you're good. In this situation, that's not really the case, as we're seeing these straight line winds out ahead of the actual main line themselves here. Also, I was just looking outside at some of the damage that I had here at my location. Looked like a bunch of small tree limbs. My estimate is that we had winds of about 55 miles per hour. I think we were just below severe limits. We may have gotten a quick 60 mile per hour wind gust here on the south side of Nevada, but I will tell you, we at least had 50 to 60 mile per hour winds, because there have been some tree branches down here where I'm located at. So I just wanted to go ahead and give you that update here on the storms here. So all right, so we've got that new warning that was just issued. So it now includes along US 54, Wabalo, Wheatland, Hermitage. We've also got Cross Timbers, Flemington, Osceola, Warsaw, Edwards, Lincoln. So this area, is very rural, but that being said, there's a lot of small towns and a lot of highways that run through this area as well. So certainly lots of different areas that could be impacted here by these storms here. So again, new warning was issued. Let's get to the latest that we know on that here. Here it is, severe thunderstorm warning, and there is an observed threat. So the public has reported 50 to 60 mile per hour wind gusts. So just like what I was saying here, again, I was estimating that we had wind damage here, 50 to 60 mile per hour winds. And now we have that confirmed here from the National Weather Service in Springfield. So Hickory County, Cedar, Benton, Polk, St. Clair County, severe thunderstorm warning until 2 p.m. for 60 mile per hour winds. At 12:57 p.m., severe thunderstorms were located along a line extending from near Leeton to near Deepwater to near El Dorado Springs, moving east at 40 miles per hour. So these storms have a history of producing 50 to 60 mile per hour winds. There has also been quarter-sized hail reported out of these storms here. These storms will be near Lowry City at about 1:05, so right now. Osceola, your storms are going to move in at about 110. Warsaw, Lincoln, Wabalo around 130. Cole Camp and Wheatland around 140. And then Hermitage around 145. So that is a timeline on when these straight line winds are going to be moving in. So again, we have confirmation that severe winds have been recorded out of these storms. Let's see if we actually have any storm reports from the Storm Prediction Center. I'm curious if we have any damage reports yet out of some of these storms. I would say we almost have to, considering that in Miami County, Kansas, we had down power lines around Kansas City Road. That's the other thing. Let's look at some power outages here. Let's go to poweroutage.us. We're at 745,000 customers without power on a nationwide scale, but a lot of those are not in Missouri. Well, we've got 5,300 customers without power. Most of those are in Cass and Bates counties. We've also got Andrew County outside of our viewing area, Caldwell. So we've got some of our northern counties under that, or not under that, dealing with some of those power outages. But also now Bates County, you're at 2,700 customers, Cass County has 2,700 customers without power. We've got 213 in Bates County, and then only 42 right now in Vernon County. Currently, no outages reported in our counties that are dealing with the storms right now. But again, those straight line winds are likely just now moving into the area. So we're at 5,300 customers without power in Missouri. Let's see what we've got in Kansas right now. We're at 6,100 customers without power, including 2,800 in Miami County and then 1,200 customers in Bourbon County currently without power. So again, nothing too significant right now, but some power outages have shown up out of these storms, and we have had some wind gusts of around 50 to 60 miles per hour that have been recorded out of some of these storms. All right, so let's go ahead and go back to the radar here. We've still got severe thunderstorm warning for 60-mile-per-hour winds and observed quarter-size hail earlier in Fort Scott. This remains in effect until 1:30. Again, Cedar, St. Clair, Vernon counties till 1:30 p.m. At 1:04 p.m., severe thunderstorms are located along the line extending from 9 miles east of Shell City to 6 miles southwest of El Dorado Springs to Sheldon, moving southeast at 35 miles per hour. Damaging winds may start 10 to 15 minutes before the actual rain begins. So these storms have a history of producing 50 to 60 mile per hour winds and quarter-size hail. Locations impacted include Stockton Lake, Truman Lake, Stockton State Park, Nevada, El Dorado Springs, Stockton, Appleton City, Osceola, Lowry City, Sheldon, Montevallo, Walker, Shell City, Jericho Springs, Collins, Milo as well. So those areas under this warning, again, this remains in effect for the next 22 minutes for 60 mile per hour winds and quarter-size hail, both of which have been reported out of these storms. So right there along US 54, this is the warning that we just talked about. But there has now also been an extension on this warning further towards the east. We were talking about this just a little bit ago. Severe thunderstorm warning for Hickory, Cedar, Benton, Polk, and St. Clair counties now until 2 p.m. for 60 mile per hour winds. Osceola, the storms are now moving into your area. They will be moving into Warsaw, Lincoln, and Wabalo around 1:30, Cole Camp and Wheatland around 1:40, and Hermitage around 1:45. We've moved up the time just a little bit. So Hermitage, these storms will be moving in at 1:45. Again, hail and winds have been recorded out of both of these. So these two severe thunderstorm warnings remain in effect across those areas. This one on the western side till 1:30. This one further to the east, including US 65 and US 54, remain under this warning until 2 p.m. All right, then we've also still got these warnings a little bit further towards the north. Severe thunderstorm warning remains in effect for Pettis into Saline, Johnson counties till 1:30 p.m. 60 mile per hour winds and penny-sized hail. Radar indicated threat. The last time that we looked here at the winds, we didn't have anything too significant showing up, but we'll go to the velocities now and see if we have anything on them here. So still seeing some winds on the east side of Leeton, likely looking at some strong winds now moving into Windsor. We've got Lincoln, Green Ridge that are going to be next, and then eventually this will move towards the Sedalia area. Let me go ahead and do a quick scan of these storms and see what kind of wind speeds that are being estimated by the radar. So go ahead and we'll get that to you. And so let's see, Windsor, I'm getting wind reports around Windsor of 40 to 45 miles per hour. These are radar estimated amounts. So 40 miles per hour, 45 miles per hour. Let's go up to Warrensburg, currently at about 40 to 50 miles per hour around the Warrensburg area. And then really once we get northwest of Warrensburg, right in this area here around Kingsvale down into Lone Jack, once we get on this northern side of the warning, we're no longer seeing the strong winds. So really the strong winds right now that we're dealing with are around Warrensburg into Windsor, moving down towards Warsaw as well. That's where we have some of the stronger winds that are being reported here out of this storm. But still, we do have that warning that remains in effect here, including Sedalia, severe thunderstorm warning for Henry Pettis, Saline counties. So this remains in effect, as we said, until 1:30 p.m. So 60-mile-per-hour winds, penny-sized hail going to be possible out of that storm. We also have a flash flood warning that remains in effect across this area as well. All right. So that's what we're dealing with right now. So again, we've got 1, 2, 3, 4 severe thunderstorm warnings that are active right now across, or I guess that's three different severe thunderstorm warnings that we have that are active. And then again, we've also got some flash flood warnings that are now on the backside of these storms where we have already seen between 1 and 2 inches of rain that have fallen across this area. So some flooding is going to be possible. Severe thunderstorm watch remains in effect for all of these counties here in the pink, excluding Columbia. You're not under that. These two counties over here, Callaway and Boone County, you're under extreme heat warnings, but you're not under that severe thunderstorm watch. But over through here, Jefferson City, you're under this watch. Rolla, Lebanon, Nevada, although the storms have already passed through your area. Warrensburg, Sedalia, also under these severe thunderstorm watches. This watch remains in effect until 7 p.m. The main hazards are going to be hail up to 1.5 inches in diameter and winds of up to 75 miles per hour are going to be possible. So the severe thunderstorm watch remains in effect until 7 p.m. this evening and is going to go for this complex of storms. We're also dealing with a couple of isolated storms around Springfield, so we have to watch these storms very closely. South of Lebanon as well, a few showers and storms developing to the south of Jefferson City, and then of course across the St. Louis area as well. We're dealing with some storms. Also, for those of you who might be traveling today across central and northern Illinois, we've got a few storms that are going to be rolling through those areas. We've got Peoria, Illinois dealing with some storms, a couple of other storms around Rockford to the west of Chicago. We also have a severe thunderstorm watch across this area as well, central eastern Illinois and northwestern Indiana, where we're going to be dealing with some severe storms. Even a couple of storms have now developed there across northern Iowa as well. And then today we got severe storms across the Northeast, West Virginia into Virginia, dealing with some severe storms right now. A couple of scattered storms across Georgia. These are non-severe. A couple of non-severe storms also across Louisiana, Arkansas, and into Florida. And then even look at that. We've got some storms moving through right now across the Great Lakes in the Northeast region around New York as well. So again, storms really all over the place today here on this 4th of July holiday. Of course, it being the 250th anniversary of the United States of America. There are going to be a lot of celebrations because of that, but we could have some disruptions to some of those celebrations due to some of these strong storms. Again, the good news is that a lot of these areas are seeing the storms right now, not necessarily when we're going to have the peak of these celebrations going on, but still certainly something that could impact us as we go through the rest of today. All right, here's what we're dealing with. So again, we've got heat alerts too. That's going to be the other big story today. Heat and the severe storms all across the central and eastern U.S. Heat advisories in the orange, extreme heat warnings in that kind of purplish color, and then the lighter pink, we've got severe thunderstorm watches. We just had a new one issued for Pennsylvania, Ohio. We've got Illinois, Indiana, also into Missouri under those severe thunderstorm watches, and then flood watches across Iowa into Illinois. Air quality alerts in Colorado, and then we've even got that fire risk today across Oregon and into Washington as well. So we still have heat advisories in effect for all the counties in orange until 8 p.m. That being said, our main concern that we have with some of those warmer temperatures, that main threat is mainly going to be before the storms move in. So once these storms move into your area, temperatures should drop off. But until they arrive, heat index values of up to 106 degrees are going to be possible. So make sure to drink plenty of water, never leave kids or pets in a vehicle, and then take frequent breaks in the shade or AC. Here's our severe weather risk as we go through the rest of this evening. So again, the severe weather risk has increased just a little bit. Originally, this was just going to be a marginal risk, and now we have that enhanced risk across the orange and that slight risk in the yellow. Our far southwestern counties under that enhanced 3 out of 5 risk. The rest of the area, excluding Kansas City, is under that slight 2 out of 5 risk for severe storms. 60 to 70 mile per hour wind gusts, frequent lightning, and localized flooding are going to be possible. Here's a timeline of some of those storms. The majority of our viewing area, our main severe weather threat is right now, continuing until about 4 or 5 p.m. But additional storms from about 4 to 6 p.m. are going to develop across our central and southern counties, and those will continue during the evening hours and could impact any plans that you may have this evening. Those storms will likely develop around 4 or 5 p.m., and the main timeline for severe weather this evening is going to be from about 6 to 10 p.m. After 10 or 11 p.m., these storms will move into to the south of our viewing area. 60 to 70 mile per hour winds with quarter-size hail are going to be possible as storms are expected to redevelop along a frontal boundary and push into southeastern and west central Missouri. So again, we've got an afternoon round of storms, but that's going to be separate from our evening round of storms. Our afternoon round of storms, well, that's of course the one that we're dealing with right now, but these evening storms that we're going to have will not begin until around 5 or 6 p.m. So if you are under severe thunderstorm watch right now, that's for the current round of storms. But again, that doesn't necessarily mean that you're done with the severe weather after this first round moves out of the area. So, of course, we already know what's happening with our current round of storms, but let's go ahead and show you what we're forecasting later this evening. So here's our evening storms. This is from Tropical Tidbits on the NAM radar here. So again, some storms will develop today across southeastern Kansas around 6, 7 p.m., and then they will push into our southwestern counties around 9 p.m., and then they will likely move out around 11 or 12. So again, mainly during the evening hours, mainly after dark, unfortunately, since we're going to be that's going to be the main time frame for 4th of July celebrations and everything. But, we may have some weather delays. But again, when thunder roars, you need to go indoors. Or I guess in today's case, when you see straight line winds moving into your area, then you need to move inside. And sometimes that can happen before we actually see the storm itself move through. Sometimes some of those strong straight line winds move in out ahead of the storm. All right, so that is what we're dealing with right now. So again, lots of hazardous weather on America's 250th birthday, but of course, not really a big surprise as we get hazardous weather quite a bit here in the United States, so it only makes sense that we would celebrate in style with severe weather on America's 250th birthday. It represents hazardous weather. I mean, this is very representative of hazardous weather that we see in Missouri, or really across the U.S. during the summertime. Severe weather, tornadoes. Of course, there's more tornadoes in the United States than any other country annually, so it only makes sense that we would have severe weather on a day celebrating the anniversary of our nation's birth. All right, so that's what we're dealing with right now here. So again, let's just go ahead and look at some of these storms right now, other places here. Again, we've got Virginia, West Virginia, Charleston, a few storms going through right now. And a lot of these have severe thunderstorm warnings. West Virginia, southwest of Clarksburg, we've got Morgantown, Fairmont. I'm not familiar with all of these areas, so we're just kind of reading off what's here on the screen. Central Ohio, we've got a few strong storms developing. Couple of storms in Virginia. Again, Georgia's got a few strong to non-severe storms. And then, of course, Florida. We get pretty much isolated storms every day in Florida, so that's not a big deal. Not that unusual for us. Arkansas, a few storms. Louisiana, Mississippi, dealing with the storms. Illinois, again, these storms are just now starting to get a little bit on the stronger and beefier side, so I would not be surprised if we had some severe weather out of these in the next few hours. Again, even New York, we're dealing with storms. Central Michigan storms, northern Iowa storms, even into central Kansas. These are some of the storms that could move into our area later tonight. All right, well, that is what we're dealing with right now. So, again, quite a bit of action going on this afternoon here with our severe storms. Of course, if you have any questions for us, you can always call in at 417-448-0819. But just be aware that anytime you call in when we're doing a live stream, you will more than likely be live on the air with us unless we're having some technical difficulties. But otherwise, we will have you live on the air if you call in with any questions you may have. Give us a general idea of where you're located at, maybe not an exact location, and we can give you kind of a personalized forecast of what you can expect in your area. If you want any information on where it's safe to drive, we can also do that as well. We can give you recommendations of where to go in order to dodge these storms. Because again, if you run into 70-mile-per-hour winds like we're seeing out of some of these storms, that is definitely going to be problematic. I will say that we're no longer looking at 70. We're kind of in that 60-mile-per-hour range. So overall, our wind threat has gone down quite a bit in the last 30 to 45 minutes. But still, you definitely want to take these storms very seriously. All right, let's see. Another big weather story we have going on is we have a super typhoon, Bobby, that is going to be impacting Guam and the Northern Mariana Islands within the next 24 to 36 hours. Here is a look at zoom.earth, looking at the current satellite. In fact, we'll just go ahead and take this live on the satellite. There it is, a very well-defined typhoon. Yeah, very well-defined typhoon that is now continuing to strengthen as it moves further towards the west across the western Pacific. So here is the forecast. Here's that cone of uncertainty. Again, it will be moving towards the Guam area, likely bringing in some impacts. I mean, we're looking at wind speeds of 155 to 165 miles per hour that will be possible out of this typhoon later today and into tomorrow. So, if you know anybody that is traveling or living across this area, definitely give them a heads up if they don't already know that there is a pretty powerful typhoon that is continuing to move across the western Pacific. It will then move into the Philippine Sea, and it will still be a pretty powerful storm as it moves towards Taiwan and China. So we will have to watch this storm. Will it stay as strong as it is right now? So we'll watch this storm very closely. It's already been a very active start to the season across the western Pacific, but even in the eastern Pacific. Looks like we've also got a tropical storm that is impacting us there as well. So again, a couple of ongoing tropical events right now across that area. Here in the Eastern Pacific, we do have a possible development area, an area to watch by the National Hurricane Center, but I am happy to say that we are clear of anything right now across the Atlantic. So that is certainly good news. All right, let's go ahead and go back to our storms here. So I'm happy to say Bates, Cass counties, Vernon counties, all of you are out of the severe thunderstorm warning. Your severe weather threat for now is over. Again, you could see storms later today, but for now, your threat is over. We do still have a severe thunderstorm warning for St. Clair and Cedar counties for 60-mile-per-hour winds and quarter-size hail until 1:30. That's for this area. And then we have an extension, new severe thunderstorm warning for Benton, Polk, St. Clair, and Cedar counties for 60-mile-per-hour winds, quarter-size hail until 2 p.m. And then we've also still got a warning in effect until 1:30 for Henry, Pettis, and Johnson counties, 60-mile-per-hour winds and penny-sized hail. All right, so that is what we're currently dealing with. And then again, we also have some flash flood warnings that remain in effect for some of the areas that have already seen some very heavy rainfall. Flash flood warning remains in effect here across this area. That eastern flash flood warning for Cass, Henry, and Johnson counties till 5 p.m. Radar indicated threat. We also have a flash flood warning for Johnson, Miami counties, Kansas, Cass County, Missouri until 6:30. Emergency management has reported some flooding, so we have an observed tag with that flash flood warning. All right, well, we're now going to move into our next brief intermission. This is GWP Live Severe Weather Coverage. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back at 1:30 p.m. And we are back here on GWP Live's ongoing severe weather coverage. It is now 1:30 p.m. here, Central Daylight Time, on this 250th anniversary of the United States of America, Saturday, July 4th, 2026, and we are tracking some of the ongoing severe storms across the area. And yes, we have returned. So, trying some new things out here on the live stream. So have to bear with us here as we experiment with that here. But we're still tracking some ongoing severe storms here across the viewing areas. Let's go ahead and get the latest information. We currently only have one severe thunderstorm warning, actually two, because we just had a new one issued right here for Sedalia, as well as into Pilot Grove and Boonville. New severe thunderstorm warning issued. So we're going to try to get the latest on that here. The old warning is now expired, though, for Warrensburg. Warrensburg, you're no longer under the warning. So, Clinton. All right, here, just one moment. It's going to be a second here as we get that update for you. Okay, so now we have, so there's our new area that's under the warning. So Warrensburg and Sedalia. So Warrensburg, you are still under the warning. Warrensburg, Windsor, Sedalia, and Boonville. We now are under a severe thunderstorm warning. This goes in effect. This goes in effect until 2:30 p.m. We've got Henry, Pettis, Cooper, and Johnson counties, till 2:45 p.m. So Henry, Pettis, Cooper, and Johnson counties, severe thunderstorm warning now in effect until 2:45 p.m. At 1:25 p.m., severe thunderstorms are located along the line extending from near Knob Noster to 8 miles southeast of Green Ridge to near Warsaw, moving east at 45 miles per hour. 60-mile-per-hour wind gust and penny-sized hail. Damage to roofs, sidings, and trees will be possible. Locations impacted include Sedalia, Warrensburg, Boonville, Windsor, Knob Noster, Whiteman Air Force Base, Lamonte, Pilot Grove, Smithton, Green Ridge, Calhoun, Ottersville, Winston, Houstoniana, Prairie Home, Hughesville, Tightwad, Woolridge, and Clifton City. This includes Interstate 70 between mile markers 86 and 114. So again, this is a new warning for 60-mile-per-hour winds and some small non-severe hail. Again, we have already had wind damage recorded today out of some of these storms, but now we have that warning that is in effect for Warrensburg and Sedalia. So let's go ahead and look at the latest on the velocities here. We're still dealing with some pretty strong winds around Spring Fork and into Sedalia. Let me go ahead and estimate some of these wind speeds based on the radar. Right now, the radar is estimating wind speeds of around 50 to 65 miles per hour right in here around Spring Fork. The radar is saying that we have 50 to 60 mile per hour winds right in here on the southwest side of Sedalia, and this is continuing to move towards the northeast. Moving east to northeast at about 45 miles per hour. So again, some pretty strong winds have been spotted on radar on the south side of Sedalia. Sedalia, you also just went under a flood advisory as well. New flood advisory was just issued for Sedalia and Pettis County until 4:30 p.m. for some flooding in the low-lying areas. But again, some strong winds have now been observed here on the radar just to the southwest of Sedalia. Right in here is where we've got some of the worst of the winds. On the southern side of Sedalia, a couple of other strong wind gusts around Knob Noster as well. So this area, some straight line winds of 60 miles per hour is going to be possible as shown up here on the radar. Tornado threat, not much of a tornado threat today. So that's good news, but again, wind is going to be the big concern out of these storms here, and we're certainly seeing it right here and then right in here on the south side of US 65. Some straight line winds right there showing up here on the radar. So, severe thunderstorm warning now in effect till 2:45 p.m., including Sedalia, Warrensburg as well. So, Boonville under that warning too. So, again, these new areas under this warning, Green Ridge into Sedalia, Sedalia and Boonville, you're going to be next in line for the potential for 60-mile-per-hour winds, and we're still getting some very strong winds indicated by the radar. All right, a little bit further to the south, we do still have a severe thunderstorm warning that remains in effect for these storms around Stockton and into Warsaw. This warning until 2 p.m. for Cedar, Benton, Polk, and St. Clair counties until 2 p.m. Okay, this warning just got upgraded to a considerable threat tag. Law enforcement has now reported downed trees and power lines in Shell City. Quarter-sized hail was also recorded earlier today in Fort Scott. So new severe thunderstorm warning for Hickory, Benton, Cedar, Polk, and St. Clair counties until 2 p.m. Hazards include 70-mile-per-hour winds and quarter-sized hail. This was reported by law enforcement. Hail damage to vehicles is expected. Considerable tree damage, wind damage is going to be possible to mobile homes, roofs, and outbuildings. These storms will be near Warsaw, Lincoln, Cole Camp, and Wabalo at about, well, right now actually, and then Hermitage around 135. So let's see, it's 135 right now. So let's see where we're at here on the velocities. I think some of these storms, again, the winds had been really ahead of the actual storm itself. Because here is the gust front right here. This is the gust front, and then here's the actual storms themselves. Now, this area right here, we're not seeing strong winds, at least not yet. But again, here's the gust front all the way out here. So this is where the strong winds are actually going to be located at, right along this line. And then this extends all the way up through Hermitage and into Cross Timbers. So then we've got this line right in here. This is where, so again, the main rain and the thunderstorms and the convective activity, all of that is back here. But the actual strong winds that we need to be concerned about are right here. And so again, they've continuously been out ahead of the actual thunderstorms themselves. And so that has been the dangerous part of these storms. So now we're looking at the potential of 70-mile-per-hour winds with a considerable threat tag. Let me go ahead and let me look at some radar estimated wind speeds. I want to see what we're getting. Okay, I'm going to first look at this. Okay, even in Greenfield, a little bit further to the south of the actual warning, yeah, even to the south of the warning, we've had some wind gust of 20 to 30, 40, even upwards of 50 miles per hour. So yeah, I would not be surprised if we even had some strong winds right in here. I mean, we can see on radar this reflectivity right here. I mean, this is all strong wind right here. So I would not be surprised if we had winds of close to 60 miles per hour, probably not quite 60 miles per hour. But again, this is the gust front. This could very well produce 30, that's a bad 30, to 50-mile-per-hour winds, potentially right in this area, which again is below severe limits, but it's going to catch people off guard because they're looking at the storm and it's all the way back here, but the strong winds are right here. So that's what really throws people off, is that the winds are about 10 to 20 minutes ahead of the actual storms. And so that's what can make things a little bit on the confusing side. But again, we will see strong straight line wind damage potentially ahead of the actual line of storms. Okay, let's see. I wanted to look at what kind of wind speeds we're getting around Hermitage right now, where we've actually got the warning right now. Okay, whoa, yeah, we're getting some winds right now near Hermitage of 20 to 30 miles per hour. So the storm has already moved through Hermitage. If we did have any impacts in Hermitage, we've already felt them. And so now this is starting to move into Preston. Urbana, you're not under a warning. You just went under a warning. Okay, that probably was good that you just went under a warning, because right now I am getting radar estimated winds out of these storms at around 60 to 65 miles per hour. So there's a considerable threat tag on these storms for a reason. Again, Hermitage into Preston, and again, it's out ahead of the main line of storms. I cannot emphasize this enough. Our straight line winds are right here, even though the actual storm is all the way over here. So that is going to be the biggest danger out of these storms, is the winds are going to move in a lot sooner than the actual storm is. And so that, of course, is a really big concern, is that you can be hit by straight line winds that can be very dangerous if you're caught outside. Trees can come down, siding can be damaged, windows might be blown out in some cases before you even hear any thunder, just because of how far out the strong gusty winds are. Again, I was looking at my other radar here just to the side, and we're getting winds, radar estimated wind speeds of around 70 miles per hour on the east side of Hermitage. Now, it's probably not quite that strong at the surface, but still, even if it's 55 or 60 miles per hour, that is going to cause some damage. So again, we just had a new severe thunderstorm warning that was issued to the east of our current warning that we were just showing you. Let's go ahead and show you the new warning. Let's go ahead and update this radar here. New severe thunderstorm warning issued for Hickory. Here it is, this one right here. New severe thunderstorm warning, including Lake of the Ozarks. This goes for Hickory County, Dallas, Benton, Miller, Laclede, Camden, and Morgan counties. New severe thunderstorm warning until 2:30 p.m. At 1:31 p.m., severe thunderstorms were located along a line extending from near Sedalia to 6 miles southeast of Warsaw to near Wheatland, moving east at 50 miles per hour. 70-mile-per-hour wind gusts and quarter-size hail are going to be possible out of these storms. So this warning is for this warning right here is what I'm talking about. So 70-mile-per-hour winds and quarter-sized hail. These storms have a history of producing downed trees and power lines around Shell City, and they also produced hail earlier today around Fort Scott. This has been reported by law enforcement. Hail damage to vehicles is expected. Considerable tree damage. Wind damage is likely to mobile homes, roofs, and outbuildings as well. These storms will be, again, they've already moved through Hermitage and Cole Camp. They will be around Stover around 145, Versailles around 150, Laurie around 155, Village of the Four Seasons and Max Creek around 2 p.m., Lake Ozark around 2:05, Eldon, Osage Beach, and Camdenton. These storms will be in your area around 2:10 p.m. Other locations that may be impacted by these storms include Lake of the Ozarks, Pomme de Terre Lake, Lake of the Ozarks State Park, Pomme de Terre State Park, Hahatonka State Park, Pittsburgh, Sunrise Beach, Lynn Creek, Preston, and Cross Timbers. If you are in any of the areas that I've just listed off, you are going to be looking at the threat of considerable wind damage from 70-mile-per-hour winds. Again, these storms have a history of producing significant wind damage and will continue to be moving towards the east. We have not seen really any signs of weakening within this main Boeing segment of the line of storms itself. On the southern end of the storms, the northern end, we've seen a little bit of weakening, but really the central core of this MCS is not showing any signs of weakening. If anything, it has been showing signs of strengthening here. Again, now looking at 70-mile-per-hour wind gusts possible. This is also including Interstate 44 between mile markers 137 and 144. Also, if you are out on the water right now and you see these storms moving in, and especially if you're under this warning and you're out on the water in Lake of the Ozarks, you need to get to shore. Again, thunder roaring is not really going to give you the notice that you need for these storms. We have seen wind damage 10 to 15 minutes before the actual rain and thunder have started, which is why you cannot go based off of that with these storms. If you go under the warning, assume that it means you need to take shelter immediately. If you are out on the lakes, which it's very well possible, it's a Saturday afternoon, it's a holiday weekend in the summer on the 4th of July, it's very possible that a lot of people are out on the lakes right now. If you are, you need to take shelter. This is a very serious situation that is moving into US 54 around Lake of the Ozarks. So please get off the water and take shelter if you are in this situation, because again, this is a very dangerous situation, especially for those that are outdoors that are celebrating the holiday here. So again, we certainly want people to celebrate the holiday and everything however they might want to, but you need to do so safely. And right now, it just is not safe across these areas as we've had a history, or these storms have had a history of producing 70-mile-per-hour winds. So again, very serious threat here out of these storms. Okay, a couple of other things that we need to update you about at this hour. We have a severe thunderstorm watch that has now been extended to include the rest of our viewing area that was not under the watch previously, excluding Joplin and Springfield in Kansas City. Yes, but we now have a watch in effect for Columbia. Columbia and Fulton, you are now under a new severe thunderstorm watch. This remains in effect until 7 p.m. 70-mile-per-hour wind gust and 1.5-inch hail is going to be possible, so it's really the same description as the previous watch was. But a new severe thunderstorm watch that now includes our northeastern counties, including the Columbia area. So Columbia, you are now under severe thunderstorm watch till 7 p.m. All right, we also had a new severe thunderstorm warning that was issued with a considerable threat tag for Cole and Montauk counties in central Missouri. This goes until 2:45 p.m. At 1:39 p.m., severe thunderstorms were located along a line extending from 23 miles west of Tipton to 33 miles southeast or southwest of Tipton, moving east at 45 miles per hour. Hazards include 70-mile-per-hour wind gusts and quarter-size hail. Hail damage to vehicles is expected. Considerable tree damage, wind damage is also going to be possible to mobile homes, roofs, and outbuildings. Locations impacted include Tipton, Clarksburg, California, into Russellville, Jamestown, Centertown, as well as into Hickory Hill and Sandy Hook. Those areas now under a severe thunderstorm warning for 75 or 70-mile-per-hour winds with a considerable threat tag until 12:45 p.m. So these storms are moving very fast here off towards the east. So new severe thunderstorm warning, Jamestown, Tipton, California, Monroe also under this new warning, Cole, Montauk counties until western Cole and Montauk counties under this warning until 2:45 p.m. Few additional storms developing south of Jefferson City. Currently, these storms are non-severe, but we will also be watching these storms as well. A couple of other storms right now across Springfield. These have developed pretty quickly in the last really 10 to 15 minutes. We've seen these storms quickly develop across this area, so we will have to continue to watch those. And then a couple of storms across Rolla as well. So again, quite a bit of activity going on this afternoon here across the state of Missouri. Some very significant wind damage has already been reported out of some of these storms so far today. All right, let's look at our power outages. We are now up to 12,400 customers without power in the state of Missouri. Cass County leads the way at 3,600. Johnson County's at 3,500. And you might think these numbers are a little bit on the lower side for what we would typically have for a severe weather event, but we're also in kind of a less populated area. So that's part of the reason why these numbers are a little bit lower. As of right now, we don't have too many power outages, but they certainly have been on the increase within the last hour. Let's see what kind of wind reports we have. We've got quite a few wind reports across northwestern and central western Missouri. Let's look at some of these new wind reports. 60-mile-per-hour wind gust in Leeton, Missouri, in Johnson County. Iconium, 63-mile-per-hour wind gust. Leeton, 65-mile-per-hour wind gust. We had, let's see, Chillowy reported trees down, snapped at Camp Palestine, Palestine, not sure about that. And then 62-mile-per-hour wind gust was reported 6 miles west of Calhoun, Missouri, in Henry County. Down tree limb in multiple areas of Clinton. So Clinton, Missouri has reported quite a bit of damage. Shell City and Vernon County reported trees down and power lines. Walker and Vernon County, Missouri. Vernon County is reporting damage to a roof and utility poles near Walker, Missouri. So, some pretty strong winds had to have caused that for a roof to come down or to be ripped off. Horton, Missouri, which is in Vernon County, damage to trees. due to eddies from strong winds. So again, it really wasn't from a storm. It was for the gust front ahead of the storm. That's really what's causing all of this damage here. Peculiar in Cass County, multiple reports of trees and wires down between Peculiar and Harrisonville. Harrisonville, trees and limbs down. Butler, Missouri, Bates County, roof damage reported in downtown Butler area. That had to be, again, this is some pretty strong winds for us to be dealing with roof damage. I mean, that's usually up around 70 miles per hour. So I would not be surprised if we had some 70-mile-per-hour winds out of this. The Butler Regional Airport recorded winds of 59 miles per hour. Lewisburg and Miami, Kansas, multiple reports of wires down and power outages across the area. And then that's pretty much it, but that is a lot of damage that we've had reported across western and central Missouri. Really, our northwestern counties is really where a lot of the impacts have been felt. It's mainly stayed south of Interstate 70, and it's been mainly along and north of US 54. That's really where we've had the worst of the damage here this afternoon from some of these storms. Again, a lot of the original forecasts were expecting these storms to dissipate before they actually made it to Missouri. We were expecting these storms to fizzle out in northeastern Kansas. There was always a chance that they could make it, but again, that chance was pretty low. I mean, really, our main severe weather threat today was supposed to be this evening, and we are still going to be dealing with severe storms later this evening, but we've had this storm or this round of storms that's moved in this afternoon out ahead of this evening's threat. The only good news to all the storms that we're dealing with right now is that could limit the atmosphere's available energy in order to produce more storms later today, which is really when a lot of those celebrations are going to be happening. But that being said, thousands of people now without power, quite a bit of tree damage has been reported. I mean, we had multiple towns that were listed on that. I mean, we had Leeton, Iconium, Chillowy, Calhoun, Clinton, Shell City, Horton, Peculiar, Harrisonville, and Butler. I mean, that's quite a few different areas. A lot of those areas are not necessarily highly populated, but still quite a few areas where we've seen damage reported just within the last hour or so. And really, the biggest problem with these storms today has been the fact that the main damage that we've seen is really before the storm has even moved in. So that's what's made these storms especially dangerous. All right, so here's what we're dealing with. So again, we've got 4 severe thunderstorm warnings that remain in effect across US 65, US 54, US 50, and even now into Interstate 70, getting into the impacts on some of these storms. So let's go ahead and look at some different wind speeds that are being estimated on the radar. Let's see what we've got here. All right, Sedalia, Versailles, Lori, those areas are currently dealing with the storms. Barnett, Eldon, you are next in line on the northern side of our storms. Max Creek, you're getting hit pretty badly right now. Osage Beach, Greenville, or Greenview, you're next in line. The heart of Lake of the Ozarks is about to be impacted in the next 20 or 30 minutes. All right, so let's go to different warnings and let's see what we're dealing with. So again, here is the gust front all the way out here, so well ahead of the actual storms themselves. Now, we haven't had as much wind damage reported with this part of the gust front. That's why all of our warnings are further to the south. Now, that being said, if you're in this area right here on the northwest side of Springfield, when this gust front moves through, you're going to notice it. The winds are going to pick up. But again, we're not going to be looking at a lot of damage out of this side of the gust front. So that, of course, is the good news. All right. Let's see. So here, I'm going to read off all of our different warnings. So we've got Hickory, Benton, and Polk counties under a warning for another 6 minutes, 70-mile-per-hour winds, and quarter-size hail, considerable threat tag on that warning. Then to the east of that, we have an extension on that warning for Hickory, Dallas, Benton, Miller, Laclede, Camden, and Morgan counties until 2:30 p.m. 70-mile-per-hour winds, quarter-size hail, considerable threat tag on that storm. And then we also have a warning that remains in effect for Cole and Montauk counties till 2:45 for 70-mile-per-hour winds, quarter-size hail. And then we do still have that warning for 60-mile-per-hour winds and penny-sized hail for Pettis and Cooper counties until 2:45. That is a radar indicated threat. The other warnings are observed, where we've had observed damage. All right, so again, that's what we're dealing with right now. It is now 1:55 p.m., so we're now going to move into our next brief intermission. We will return here at the top of the hour. This is GWP Live's ongoing severe weather coverage. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back. All right, and welcome back to GWP Live's ongoing severe weather coverage. It is now 2:02 p.m. Central Daylight Time on this Saturday, July 4th, 250th anniversary of America. Special episode here on this afternoon. So we're continuing to track some of the ongoing severe storms here across the viewing areas. Let's go ahead and get to the latest on some of these warnings here. We lost that warning that was in effect across the Warsaw areas. The severe thunderstorm warning in Warsaw has now been allowed to expire, just as it was planned to expire at 2 p.m. So it is now gone. It was this one over here, so that one is now gone, but we do still have 3 severe thunderstorm warnings that remain in effect, including one that has the risk of 70-mile-per-hour winds. This goes for Hickory, Dallas, Benton, Miller, Laclede, Camden, Morgan counties until 2:30 p.m. At 1:31 p.m., severe thunderstorms are located along a line extending from near Sedalia to 6 miles southeast of Warsaw to near Wheatland, moving east at 50 miles per hour. Hazards include 70-mile-per-hour winds and quarter-size hail. These storms will be moving towards Lake of the Ozarks around 2:05 p.m., Eldon, Osage Beach, and Camdenton around 2:10 p.m. as well. This includes Interstate 44 between mile markers 137 and 144. So those are the areas that remain under the severe thunderstorm warning. And again, the worst of the winds, what we have seen so far today, have been out ahead of the actual line of storms. And so that is part of the reason why these storms have caught people off guard so far today. And so let's go ahead and look here at the velocities. Some of the strong winds that we're getting, again, have been out ahead of the actual storm. Right here is that line. So again, these are non-severe winds on the north side of Springfield, where we've had that gust front that has been producing winds of around 30 to 50 miles per hour. So that's right in here on the northwest side of Springfield. And then as we go further towards the north, around Camdenton, that's where we're also seeing some strong winds. Let's go ahead and look at some radar estimated winds that we've had across this area. And yeah, so we've had the radar is estimating around 50 to 60 mile per hour winds, potentially moving in around Osage Beach, Lake of the Ozarks, extending up along US 54 into Eldon as well. So again, the main strong winds are going to be out ahead of the actual line of storms, which is part of the reason why people have been taken off guard by these storms, because the winds have actually moved in before the storms move in. You know, most of the time when we're dealing with these storms, when you hear thunder or it starts raining, that is your kind of last call warning, your last minute warning to go inside before the storm. But we really haven't had that warning ahead of these storms. There really hasn't been any warning ahead of these storms at all. We just have the straight line winds that just move in before you really have a chance to actually take shelter. And so that's kind of what we're starting to see out, or what we have been seeing today out of these storms. Again, Osage Beach along US 54, we're starting to get into the worst of the impacts. Eldon is going to be next up in line as well. So 70-mile-per-hour winds, a considerable threat tag is going to be possible. Lake of the Ozarks, Lynn Creek, Preston, Cross Timber, Sunrise Beach, those are some of the other areas that are under this warning that remains in effect until 2:30 p.m. So again, 70-mile-per-hour winds, considerable threat tag on that warning. Then we go a little bit further to the a little bit further towards the northeast, and we have a severe thunderstorm warning that now goes in effect for Cole and Montauk counties across south or central Missouri here. This warning also has a considerable threat tag. It goes until 2:45 p.m. So western Cole and Montauk counties under this warning. At 2:01 p.m., severe thunderstorms were located along a line extending from 5 miles west of Tipton to 15 miles southwest of High Point, or along 5 miles west of Tipton to 22 miles south of Tipton, moving east at 50 miles per hour. So again, 75-mile-per-hour winds and quarter-size hail are going to be possible. Tipton, Clarksburg, High Point, California, Eugene, Russellville, and Jamestown, Sandy Hook, those are just some of the areas that are under this warning and for 70-mile-per-hour winds that now remains in effect until 2:30 p.m. So let's go ahead and go over to the velocities. Again, the straight line damaging winds are right in here ahead of the actual storms themselves and are going to be moving into US 50 and then eventually into Jefferson City as well. So again, when you are issued under the warning, then that's the time that you need to take shelter because the strong winds today have been out ahead of the main line of storms, and so you don't have as much warning time most of the time when we're dealing with that potential. All right, we just had a new severe thunderstorm warning that was issued. It's an extension off of the previous warning for Versailles and Osage Beach. This is a new warning that now goes for Mears, Miller, Laclede, Pulaski, Phillips, Camden, and Morgan counties. Severe thunderstorm warning now issued until 3 p.m. At 2:02 p.m., severe thunderstorms were located along a line extending from near Tifton to near Village of the Four Seasons to near Camdenton, moving east at 50 miles per hour. Hazards include 70-mile-per-hour wind gusts and quarter-size hail. As we mentioned, these storms have a history of producing widespread wind damage in and around the Truman Lake region. Hail damage to vehicles is expected. Considerable tree damage, wind damage to mobile homes, roofs, and outbuildings will also be possible. These thunderstorms will be near Eldon, Osage Beach, and Lake of the Ozarks around 2:10 p.m. They will be near Iberia at 2:25, Croker around 2:30 p.m., Dixon around 2:40, and Vienna around 2:45. Other locations that could be impacted include Lake of the Ozarks, Hahatonka State Park, Sunrise Beach, St. Elizabeth, Lynn Creek, and Barnett. This also includes Interstate 44 between mile markers 154 and 169 and 171 and 200. So again, these are very dangerous storms. We have an observed considerable threat tag under this new warning that now includes Waynesville, Rolla, St. James, and Vienna as well. So this is now an extension off of the previous warnings that we had for the areas. Let's go ahead and show you the new warned area once it actually shows up here, but here's the area that's under that new warning. We also have some storms to the north of the warning. This area is not under a warning, but we're definitely seeing some pretty strong storms around Lynn on the south side of Jefferson City. These storms are starting to merge with the storms that we have further towards the west with this main line of storms that's been continuing to move through. All right, so we've got that, and then we've got another warning that remains in effect still for Cooper and Pettis counties. This goes until 2:30 p. or 2:45 p.m. This goes for Sedalia, Boonville, Pilot Grove, Smithton, Otterville, Bunston, Houstoniana, Prairie Home, Hughesville, Woolridge, Clifton City, and into the Sedalia Memorial Airport. This includes Interstate 70 between mile markers 86 and 144. Observed 60-mile-per-hour winds are going to be possible out of that warning. All right, so again, we've got 3 severe thunderstorm warnings with a considerable threat tag with a 70-mile-per-hour wind threat. And then on the northern side of these storms around Sedalia and Boonville, we have a warning for 60-mile-per-hour winds, a little bit of a lesser of a threat, but still certainly a threat that we are dealing with. All right, so here's that new warning. Again, Bricktown, St. Elizabeth, Vienna, Vichy, Rolla, Dillon, Waynesville, Dixon, Iberia, Richland, now under this new warning that goes in effect until 3 p.m. And again, the worst of the winds that we've had out of some of these storms today have been out ahead of the main line of storms, at least some of them, especially on the southern end of the storm. That's where you have the gust front that has moved in a lot sooner than the actual storms have. We also do still have a severe thunderstorm watch that remains in effect for a lot of these counties. That continues until 7 p.m. this evening. Isolated winds of 70 to 75 miles per hour will be possible, and then we're also looking at the risk of some 1 to 1.5 inch hail that could be possible. Flash flooding is going to be another really big concern as we go through the rest of today. We have a flash flood warning with an observed tag for Cass, Henry, and Johnson counties. This was upgraded from, previously it was radar indicated. Now it's been upgraded to an observed tag. So this goes for Cass, Henry, Johnson counties flash flood warning that remains in effect until 5 p.m. So the public has reported flash flooding around Harrisonville. 1 to 2 inches of rainfall has already fallen across that area. And even though the worst of the storms have moved out, we still have been reporting some light to moderate rainfall across that area, which could add to the rainfall that we've already seen, which could lead to that flooding risk. We also still have a flash flood warning with an observed tag that remains in effect for Miami County, Kansas, and Cass County, Missouri. This continues until this one goes a little bit longer than the previous warning. It goes until 6:30 p.m. We've already had 1 to 2.5 inches of rainfall across the area. This flash flood warning includes Harrisonville, Paola, Spring Hill, Peculiar, Osawatomie, Lewisburg, Archie, Drexel, Cleveland, Freeman, Lake Anetta, West Line, Chills, as well as into Hillsdale. So again, observed flash flood warning for both of those areas. Again, across the Warrensburg area where we've had flash flooding in Harrisonville, but also into Paola, into the Kansas area where we've dealt with some flash flooding with some very heavy rainfall that has already fallen across those areas. All right, so flash flood warnings there. A couple of other storms developing across central and eastern Kansas. Some of these could make it into our viewing area a little bit later. As of right now, none of these storms have any severe thunderstorm warnings, but are definitely proof that just because you've already had rain and thunderstorms today does not mean that you can't get another round of storms a little bit later on. All right, let's go ahead and look at some of the different weather alerts that we have here across the country on this Independence Day. Again, severe storms continuing across central Missouri. Severe thunderstorm watches and warnings remain in place with some of the flash flood warnings. We've got severe storms that are starting to develop across Texas. Severe thunderstorm watch in effect in the panhandle there. We've got severe thunderstorm watches in Illinois and into Indiana. Those storms have just now started getting going. Ohio is under a severe thunderstorm watch, and then now we've even got severe weather starting to develop along the I-95 corridor, where we're also dealing with extreme heat warnings and heat advisories. Heat index values today of 105 to 110 are going to be possible. Flood watches across Iowa and Illinois. Air quality alerts in Colorado, extreme heat watches for Arizona and California. That's for early next week. Temperatures of up to 115 are going to be possible next week across that area, and that includes the Phoenix area stretching into Southern California. And then today we've got some red flag warnings across Northern Oregon and Washington. We've got an elevated fire risk, 1 out of 3 fire risk. Probably not a good idea to be shooting off any fireworks for that area, considering that we do have that fire risk across those areas for today. But again, really the main story today is going to be the heat as well as the severe storms. Both are going to be very widespread across many different areas across the United States here on this 250th birthday of America. Let's look at some other storms. St. Louis getting hit by some pretty bad storms. We've got southern Illinois, central Illinois, northern Illinois. We might as well just say all of Illinois. Even Chicago is getting a few non-severe storms that are moving through that area. Let's see what this... We've also got some flash flood warnings in there as well. Severe thunderstorm warnings, 60-mile-per-hour winds out of some of these storms in Illinois. Northern Iowa has some strong storms. Nothing too bad right now in this area. Southern Wisconsin's got a few storms. Central Michigan, northern Minnesota. Look at that. We got a few severe storms right now in Minnesota right now. Main threat's going to be hail across that region. Arkansas. Wow, things have really picked up in intensity here in Arkansas, Louisiana, Mississippi, Florida. We're getting our daily pop-up storms. And then quite a bit of severe weather right now across West Virginia, Ohio, and Pennsylvania. Things have really picked up across this area. Rochester getting hit pretty bad right now with the storm. 60-mile-per-hour winds, quarter-sized hail out of that storm. And then even on the coast of Boston, a couple of storms in eastern Massachusetts. Southern Vermont, we've got a few storms. And then even here in the panhandle of Texas, a couple of monsoon thunderstorms in southern New Mexico. A few showers and storms across Colorado as well. So again, really, I mean, our storms today are very widespread across the nation today. It's not just what we're seeing here in the state of Missouri. It is very widespread today. All right, let's see. Let me see if we have anything new. Yes. Okay. We have a new severe thunderstorm warning in Jefferson City. Let's go ahead and look at that here. This new warning goes for Boone, Callaway, Cole, and Osage counties under a new severe thunderstorm warning until 3:30 p.m. At 2:15 p.m., severe thunderstorms were located along a line from 5 miles south of Clarksburg to 29 miles south of High Point, or from 7 miles southwest of California to 39 miles south of California, Missouri, moving east at 35 miles per hour. Hazards include 70-mile-per-hour wind gusts and quarter-size hail. Hail damage to vehicles is expected. Considerable tree damage, wind damage is likely to mobile homes, roofs, and outbuildings. This includes Hickory Hill, Marion, St. Thomas, Brazito, St. Martin's, Jefferson City, Wardsville, as well as Freeburg, New Bloomfield, and Mocaine is under this warning, newly issued until 3:30 p.m. Yes, until 3. Yes, until 3:30 p.m. There it was. It disappeared for a second there. So yeah, we've got new warning issued for Jefferson City, extending a little bit towards the east of there as well. I would not be surprised. I know we've said that these storms are non-severe, but I mean, they could start producing some large hail. Earlier they were non-severe, but now I would not be surprised if we had some large hail out of these storms. So let's go ahead and look at our hail tracker. Yeah, so we definitely got some hail right now in Eldon. Eldon's getting hit pretty bad with some hail. A little bit of hail possible around St. Thomas, around Freeburg as well. South side, or the north side of Freeburg along US 63. Looking at some small hail. Some of this could move into Jefferson City. So again, new severe thunderstorm warning for Jefferson City. And again, we're now starting to see some hail showing up here on the radar, but especially right here around Eldon, Saline. Potentially looking at some pretty significant hail right in this area. Also looking at some hail around Syracuse and Tipton as well. So, hail is not necessarily a primary concern out of these storms, but it is going to be another concern that we're going to be dealing with for today. So, new severe thunderstorm warning, including Jefferson City till 3:30. Again, Boone, Callaway, Cole, and Osage counties under this warning until 3:30 p.m. Again, I am very surprised that these storms have held together this long. This is not what we were originally anticipating would happen today. These storms have definitely made it a lot further than what we were originally thinking they would. All right, so that's where we're at. So we've got 5 active severe thunderstorm warnings across the viewing area, including Lake of the Ozarks, Jefferson City, Rolla, and Sedalia. Those are just some of the more populated areas that are under these warnings for the next couple of hours, really. We're going to continue to see these storms move through. All right, so let's see what else we have that we're dealing with today. This is from the National Weather Service office in Springfield, Missouri. So again, here's that severe thunderstorm watch. Hail up to ping pong balls, 70-mile-per-hour winds, frequent lightning. This watch remains in effect until 7 p.m. tonight. Here is the SPC's severe weather outlook. So this goes for 60 to 70 mile per hour winds, frequent lightning, localized flooding. It's going to be from right now, 12 p.m. until about 4 a.m. Remember, this complex of storms, this MCS that's moving through, it's not going to last until 4 a.m. But we're going to have another round of storms in our southern counties. I mean, really, our southern counties have not been affected by these storms today. In fact, it's still very hot in our southern counties. So we haven't really seen any storms in our southern counties yet, but we are going to have additional chances for storms as we go into this evening and during the overnight hours, and those will stay in our southern counties. So again, a couple of different rounds of storms that we're going to be dealing with for this evening. Here's an estimated timeline of our severe storms. The ones that we're dealing with right now are going to be over at about 4 p.m. either they're going to be over at 4 p.m. or they will have moved out of our area. So one or the other. By 4 p.m., these storms will be out of here. But then again, we're going to have an evening round of storms between 6 p.m. and 12 a.m. as storms are going to redevelop along a frontal boundary and push southeastward into west central Missouri. We've already started to see a little bit of this developing in central and eastern Kansas, but these storms are going to become much better developed in our southern counties once we get into 6 to 12 p.m. or 6 p.m. to 12 a.m. So again, we have another round of severe storms that is expected later today. It's just our first round is going to affect our northern counties, and our second round this evening is going to be in our southern counties. The severe thunderstorm watch until 7 p.m. is for our first round. The heat is also going to continue to be a concern. Heat advisories remain in effect for the counties in orange. Ignore this in the pink, but heat advisories continue for our southern counties in the orange until 8 p.m. Heat index values up around 106 degrees will be possible. So remember to drink plenty of water, don't leave kids or pets in the car, and take frequent breaks in the shade and AC. Because if you don't, you can suffer one of these: heat exhaustion or heat stroke. Heat exhaustion is kind of that first level to heat stroke. Heat exhaustion is where you see dizziness, thirst, heavy sweating, nausea, and weakness. But again, heat exhaustion can lead to heat stroke. So if you start to feel heat exhaustion, you need to move to a cooler area, loosen clothing, sip cool water, and if symptoms don't improve, seek medical attention. If you move into heat exhaustion, if things get more severe, you can move into heat stroke, where you can actually be confused, dizzy, and may even become unconscious. You need to move the person to a cooler area. If you see somebody who is dealing with heat stroke, loosen clothing and remove any extra layers they may be wearing, as this can continue to make their body not be able to cool down. Cool them with water or ice if available. Heat stroke can cause death or permanent disability if emergency treatment is not given. Again, heat is the #1 weather-related killer in the U.S. Certainly something you want to keep in mind as we go through today. Of course, we're mainly focused on these storms today, but we also need to be focused on the heat-related impacts that we could be facing today. So there's where we have that severe thunderstorm watch. It now includes central and eastern Missouri simply because this MCS just keeps on trucking eastward. So it's going to be soon moving into central Missouri, and then it's going to be moving into eastern Missouri before too long. So again, new severe thunderstorm watch that now includes those areas. Overall, our biggest concern today is going to be strong straight line damaging winds. Tornado threat is very low and will continue to be low today, but winds with a secondary threat of hail are going to be the primary concerns. As we mentioned, it's going to be a very active day for severe weather today. We've got an enhanced level 3 out of 5 risk across northern Oklahoma and southern Kansas, but also along Interstate 95 as well. Washington, D.C., Philadelphia, and Richmond, Virginia are under that enhanced level 3 out of 5 risk. We also have a slight risk for severe weather across Colorado, Nebraska, Kansas, Texas, Oklahoma, Missouri, Arkansas, Illinois, Indiana, Ohio, North Carolina, West Virginia, Maryland, Delaware, Pennsylvania, New York, Connecticut, and New Jersey. Again, this is a very widespread severe weather event. I don't necessarily think that we're just going to have, really bad tornadoes or really bad straight line winds, but it's just going to be so widespread today. That's really the big thing about today. Tornado risk, again, very low, mainly across the Wichita area. Winds are going to be definitely a concern. In our southwestern counties, we're under that hatched area where 75-mile-per-hour winds will be possible. This is mainly referring to our second round of storms. And then we're also going to be dealing with some hail. The biggest hail today will be across northern Oklahoma and southern Kansas. Lime-size hail will be possible across those regions. And then even some hail across Minnesota and into Virginia will also be possible. All right, let's do a quick check-in on our warnings before we go to our next brief intermission. We still have warnings that remain in effect for 60-mile-per-hour winds for Cooper County until 2:45 p.m. Cole and Montauk counties under a warning with a considerable threat tag till 2:45 p.m. with 70-mile-per-hour winds possible. Considerable threat tag for our warning in Boone, Callaway, Cole, and Osage counties for 70-mile-per-hour winds. We also still have a warning for 70-mile-per-hour considerable threat tag warning for Mares Miller, Laclede, Pulaski, Phillips, Camden, and Morgan counties, that lasting until the top of the hour. This is GWP Live's ongoing severe weather coverage. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back here just after the top of the hour. And we are back here on GWP Live's ongoing severe weather coverage. It is now 2:31 p.m. on this Saturday afternoon, this 4th of July holiday weekend, where we're dealing with some severe storms here across central Missouri. Still have multiple severe thunderstorm warnings that are in effect here across central Missouri in the local viewing areas. Let's go ahead and get to all the latest information that you need to know here on these warnings. We still have a warning that remains in effect for Mears, Miller, Laclede, Pulaski, Phillips, Camden, and Morgan counties. This remains in effect until 3:30 p.m. We're looking at 70-mile-per-hour wind gusts and quarter-sized hail. So we're looking at hail damage to vehicles is expected, considerable tree damage. Wind damage is also likely to mobile homes, roofs, and outbuildings. These storms will be moving towards Waynesville, Richland, Croker, and Iberia around 2:30 p.m., North Fort Leonard Wood, St. Robert, and Dixon around 2:35 p.m., Doolittle and Vienna around 2:45 p.m., Newburgh 2:50, Rolla 2:55, and St. James around 3:05. Other locations impacted by these storms include Lake of the Ozarks State Park, Hahatonka State Park, Sunrise Beach, St. Elizabeth, Lynn Creek, as well as Barnett and Eugene. This includes Interstate 44 between mile markers 154 and 169 and 171 and 200. So again, observed 70-mile-per-hour winds and quarter-sized hail out of these storms. So it is this warning right here that has the considerable threat tag and the 70-mile-per-hour wind potential. Also, storms are moving into the Jefferson City area. We've still got a warning that remains in effect right here. This is that warning that we're now looking at for Boone, Callaway, Cole, and Osage counties. This remaining in effect until 3:30 p.m. At 2:15 p.m., severe thunderstorms were located along a line from 5 miles south of Clarksburg to 29 miles south of High Point, or along a line from 7 miles southwest of California to 39 miles south of California, moving east at 35 miles per hour. So 70-mile-per-hour wind gusts and quarter-sized hail are going to be possible out of these storms. Hail damage to vehicles, and then again, considerable tree damage is going to be possible, as well as damage to mobile homes, roofs, and outbuildings will be possible. Locations impacted include Hickory Hill, Marion, St. Thomas, Brazito, and to St. Martin's, Jefferson City, Wardsville, Holt Summit, Lake McKee Town, New Bloomfield, Rich Fountain, and Mocaine. So again, these storms will soon be moving into Jefferson City. In fact, really, they really have already moved into the south part of Jefferson City. And then we've also got warnings in effect across California, Missouri for 70-mile-per-hour winds. This goes for Cole and Montauk counties for 70-mile-per-hour winds and quarter-sized hail until 2:45 p.m. for Tipton, High Point, Clarksburg, California, Russellville, Eugene. There is an observed and considerable threat tag on this severe thunderstorm warning. And then we also have a warning that remains in effect just to the north of that for 60-mile-per-hour winds for Cooper County until 2:45 p.m. At 2:24 p.m., severe thunderstorms were located near New Franklin to near Jamestown to near Eldon, moving east at 45 miles per hour. So damage to roof sidings and trees will be possible. We've got Booneville, Pilot Grove, Otterville, Bunestown, Prairie Home, Woolridge, as well as into Clifton City around Interstate 70, mile markers 86 to 144. So 60-mile-per-hour winds possible out of this storm here on the southwest side of Columbia. So Columbia, the storms continuing to move closer to your area. It appears that the worst of the storms will be moving just to the south of Columbia, but we do still have that severe thunderstorm watch in effect until 7 p.m. in case these storms do shift a little bit further to the north. But as of right now, the main movement has been from west to east. All right, let's see what we have on our wind tracker here. See if we have any strong winds being observed on the radar. Again, I really think on the south side of Jefferson City, right in here, and then also over towards the west side as well. That's really where we're going to have some of the stronger winds. Let's go ahead. Just one moment here as we just a few things on the radar. All right, right in there, south side of Jefferson City. Yeah, we're definitely getting some strong winds south of Jefferson City right now. Let's go ahead and I'm gonna estimate some wind speeds right now. The radar is estimating winds of 50 to 60 miles per hour near Wardsville, along just to the southeast of US 54. Wow, I'm even getting one estimate of 114 mile per hour winds west of Wardsville. It's probably a mistake, but that is, of course, unless we're dealing with a tornado, which, okay, I think we have, at the very least, some rotation south of Jefferson City right now. I would not be surprised. I'm seeing right in here, we've got some rotation. I would not be surprised. We've got rotation here and then another area right here. This could be, we have a little rotation. I don't want to say that we have a tornado right now, but um, we certainly could get a little brief rain wrap tornado right in here. Right now, it's very broad rotation, so we don't really have enough we don't really have enough to say that this is a tornado, but we're certainly getting some very strong wind gusts of around 70 miles per hour estimated by the radar. And then on top of that, we've also on top of that, we've also had some really strong 114. Again, we had 114 mile per hour winds just to the west of Wardsville, not necessarily confirmed, estimated by the radar. Interesting on the south side of Jefferson City near Wardsville. This is very interesting. This is very interesting what we're seeing now. I'm seeing I've seen a little bit of rotation near Wardsville on my rotation tracker. All right, we definitely need to keep an eye on that right there. Right in here, a little bit of rotation, could be a potential tornado right in here. A couple of different areas, but really this area in particular is really jumping out to me. We could have had a brief rain-wrapped tornado on the south side of Jefferson City. Certainly nothing confirmed, but definitely the setup or definitely what we would need to see on radar in order to see that. So I would watch this right there. Potential tornado on the south side of Jefferson City. What I would call suspicious rotation is what we call it here on GWP, because we don't necessarily have an official warning for a tornado, but we have a suspicious rotation that can sometimes lead to a tornado is what we kind of classify it as. So again, around Wardsville, right in there. Nonetheless, we have some very strong winds in this area. Again, potentially around 70 miles per hour. So severe thunderstorm warning, rain's in effect there. Again, this is Callaway, Cole, and Osage County till 3:30 p.m. Considerable threat tag. And again, suspicious area of rotation on the south side of Jefferson City. So if you are in Wardsville or in that area, you need to watch this storm very closely. Because again, some very strong winds have been indicated now by the radar out of this storm. All right, so let's go back to the radar. So again, here's that area of suspicious rotation on the south side of Jefferson City. Jefferson City now likely seeing potentially some of the worst impacts out of this storm right now. Really, the worst of the winds are right in here. I'm not seeing as much out of this area right here. I'll go back to it and see if anything has changed from a few minutes ago out of this storm in California. Now it appears to have moved east, Centertown, Jamestown, Prairie Home. That's where the strong winds would be at now. We go over to storm velocity and measure some of these winds estimated by radar. Again, I have just not really seen as much strong winds. A little bit on the northwest side of California. I've gotten some wind speeds estimated in here about 45 to 50 miles per hour, but that's below severe limits. So again, the winds get a little bit less. Yeah, we have a little bit lower wind speeds out of this storm on the north side of US 50. But right in here around Jefferson City, that's where we've been getting the strongest winds, at least estimated by radar. We've also got these storms out ahead of the storms around Mount Sterling and into Owensville as well, east of US 63. Some small hail will be possible, but really the big storms are going to be back towards your west. Those are currently moving towards the Osage River between Jefferson City and into St. Thomas as well. We also have a severe thunderstorm warning north of Lebanon around the Raleigh area. So also a little bit lower on that threat level for this storm, but we do still have that warning in effect. Again, law enforcement has recorded severe damage in the Lake of the Ozarks region. Widespread wind damage has been reported near Lake of the Ozarks. Still, 70-mile-per-hour wind gusts are going to be possible. This warning remains in effect for Mares, Miller, Pulaski, Phillips, and Camden counties until 3 p.m. At 2:38 p.m., severe thunderstorms are located along a line extending from near St. Thomas to near Dixon to near Richland, moving east at 50 miles per hour. Hazards include 70-mile-per-hour winds and quarter-sized hail. Hail damage to vehicles is expected. Considerable tree damage. Wind damage is also going to be likely to mobile homes, roofs, and outbuildings. These storms will be moving towards North Fort Leonard Wood, Waynesville, St. Robert, Dixon, and Vienna around 2:45, Doolittle and Newburgh around 2:55, Rolla and Bell around 3 o'clock, St. James around 3:10. Other locations that could be impacted include Lake of the Ozarks, St. Elizabeth, Eugene, and into Lakeside. This includes Interstate 44 between mile markers 156 and 200. Again, these storms have a history of producing 70-mile-per-hour winds with them, and that warning remains in effect for Waynesville into Rolla, as well as Vienna and St. James. But really right now, the main warning that I'm concerned about is this one for Holt Summit into Jefferson City, where again, we have been looking at some radar estimates of some very strong wind gusts of 70 to maybe even 80 miles per hour with the potential of some very large hail, especially on the south side of Jefferson City. Flooding is also going to be a concern out of some of these storms today. We still have some flash flood warnings that remain in effect for some of our counties. We have an observed flash flood warning for Miami County, Kansas, and Cass County in Missouri. This warning remains in effect for a couple more hours there for the potential of flash flooding. 6:30 p.m. is when it's going to expire. We also have a flash flood warning that remains in effect for Cass, Henry, Johnson counties. That remains in effect for the next few hours until 5 p.m. Observed flooding across that area as well. So flooding is going to be another big concern as we go through the rest of the afternoon and evening hours. All right. So again, we've got those two flash flood warnings, and we've still got 4 severe thunderstorm warnings here across the viewing area. A couple of storms have started to develop near the Springfield and Lebanon area, so we'll keep an eye on those. Those are still below severe limits, at least for now. Still watching these storms out west along Interstate 70, west of Topeka. These storms have strengthened a little bit. Again, later today, we're going to have a second round of severe storms across this area. Well, really kind of this area. This area is going to be dealing with the second round of severe storms later today. In particular, it's going to be for the area that wasn't affected by this first round of storms. The area that was not affected by this first round of storms, it's still very hot, still very humid, it's still very unstable. The atmosphere is. That instability is going to lead to the potential for severe storms during the evening and overnight hours for us tonight. Our main window is going to start around 5 or 6 p.m. and these will continue until about 11 p.m. or midnight. So again, later this evening, really our prime time is going to be from about 7 p.m. to 11 p.m. That's going to be our main window for severe weather across our southern counties, as again, an additional round of storms is expected to move through. We've also been dealing with some other hazardous weather here across the country. Let's look at some different weather alerts that we have. We've got multiple severe thunderstorm watches across the country, including this one here in Missouri, but also in the panhandle of Texas. Severe thunderstorm watch in Illinois and Indiana. We've got one in Ohio, Virginia, West Virginia, Pennsylvania, and New York. So lots of different areas dealing with severe weather today. Also, across that darker pink and into the orange, we've got heat advisories and extreme heat warnings that that remain in effect through today. Again, very extreme heat will continue across St. Louis, where we've got those extreme heat warnings. Heat index values of up around 108 degrees will be possible today across St. Louis. Also along the I-95 corridor, heat index values of around 110 will be possible for today. For the heat advisories, the threat is a little bit lower, but still certainly something to take very seriously. Flood watches across eastern Iowa and western Illinois, where we've got some severe storms that could produce some excessive rainfall. We've got some air quality alerts in Colorado, red flag warnings in Oregon and Washington, where you probably don't want to be shooting off fireworks, and then extreme heat watches, as we're going to be dealing with well above triple-digit heat there in Phoenix, in southern Arizona, and into southern California. Actual temperatures could be 215 degrees across that region. So again, multiple different threats that we're dealing with for weather today across the country. Here in the state of Missouri, we've got our severe thunderstorm watch. That remains in effect until 7 p.m. Some of our western counties are no longer under this, so we're starting to see this get trimmed off a little bit. But still, certainly for these central counties and eastern counties, till 7 p.m., we have that severe thunderstorm watch in effect. Ping pong ball size hail, 70-mile-per-hour winds, and some frequent lightning are going to be possible. So you want to have a way to get those different warnings. Of course, when those warnings are issued here, or when those warnings are issued today across Missouri, we will be updating you here on GWP with all of the latest information you need to know here on the Great World Productions. Severe weather threat continues today for the areas in yellow, 2 out of 5 risk. For the areas in orange, we've got that 3 out of 5 risk from the Storm Prediction Center. Again, we're going to have multiple rounds of storms as we go through today. That first round of storms will continue until about 4 p.m., and then that second round will begin at about 6 p.m. and will continue into the overnight hours. Here's an estimated timeline of our storms. So again, mainly our central and northern counties. Continues until 4 p.m. 70-mile-per-hour winds, hail up to quarters is going to be possible as these storms that started out in Kansas have now moved into central Missouri, and these will continue to move through the next hour or so. Then an additional round of storms will develop around 6 p.m. and will continue until about midnight with additional winds and hail that are going to be possible, and then gradually weakening storms will develop in our far southern counties across southern Missouri, and those areas will see impacts well into the overnight hours tonight. For the areas that haven't experienced the storms yet, we do still have those heat advisories that continue till 8 p.m. tonight. Heat index values up to 106 degrees will be possible. So remember to drink plenty of water, never leave kids or pets in a vehicle, and take frequent breaks in the shade or AC. Just as a reminder, the first sign of a heat stroke is heat exhaustion. That's when you start dealing with dizziness, thirst, heavy sweating, nausea, and weakness. Once that happens, you need to act fast. You need to move to a cooler area, loosen clothing, sip cool water, and if those symptoms do not improve, seek medical help. As a reminder, heat exhaustion can lead to heat stroke, which heat stroke can lead to death or permanent disability if emergency treatment is not given. Remember, heat is the #1 weather-related killer in the United States, as well as in the world, and so you need to take this very seriously. Once you start experiencing heat strokes or signs that you're having heat stroke or confusion, dizziness, and if you become unconscious, you need to act very fast. You need to call 911. If you see somebody else who's experiencing heat stroke, chances are they're not able to get medical attention, so you need to assist them first by calling 911, then by moving them to a cooler area. Then you need to loosen clothing and remove any extra layers that may be continuing to prevent them from being able to cool off. And then if water and ice are available, you need to give that to the person. Try splashing the water on their face. Hopefully that will kind of get them to come to where they can drink additional water and cool off. But the biggest thing is you need to call 911 and move them to a cooler location, because 911 is going to be your best resource in order to help the person that is experiencing the heat stroke. The other thing is you need to move the person to a cooler area so that they're able to improve upon those symptoms. Those symptoms will continue to get worse and more life-threatening if they continue to remain in the environment that is causing that to occur. All right, so again, severe thunderstorm watch across central Missouri. Tornado threat's pretty low today, especially in Missouri. Wind threat, it's going to be a little bit on the higher side, at least moderate, and then low-end hail risk as well. Here are the different areas that are under the Storm Prediction Center's severe weather outlook. We've got an enhanced risk today across northern Oklahoma, southern Kansas. That's a 3 out of 5 risk. We also have a 3 out of 5 risk today across Richmond into Washington, D.C., and Philadelphia and Baltimore. Those areas under 3 out of 5 risk along the I-95 corridor. Straight line damaging winds are going to be the main concern today across that region. We have a slight risk for severe weather across multiple different locations. That's a 2 out of 5 risk. We've got that across Kansas, Nebraska, Colorado, Texas, Oklahoma, Kansas, Missouri, Arkansas, Illinois, Indiana, Ohio, North Carolina, Virginia, Maryland, Pennsylvania, Delaware, into New Jersey, New York, and Connecticut. All of those states under that slight 2 out of 5 risk for severe weather. Tornadoes are mainly going to be across southern Kansas. The overall threat is pretty low for that. Wind risk is going to be our biggest threat today. We've got the I-95 corridor under that 45% category. So that's a little bit higher on that scale. Not the highest, but certainly a little bit on that, on the higher side of that. And then we've also got winds in Colorado, Kansas, Nebraska. And then we've also got that hatched area from the Texas Panhandle through Oklahoma, Arkansas, and our far southwestern counties are in that hatched area where we're looking at 75 to 85 mile per hour wind gusts that are going to be possible. Hail threat today is mainly going to be across Oklahoma and Kansas. Lime-sized hail or greater will be possible, but in our far western counties, we do have a slight hail risk for today. And then a few other areas, including Virginia and Minnesota, are going to be looking at a hail risk out of some of these storms. The Storm Prediction Center will be updating this severe weather outlook apparently right now. It actually just updated, and let's see, do we have any major changes? Okay, tornado threat is still the same. Wind threat is pretty much still the same. And then nothing has changed with hail, except for except for New York and Pennsylvania, Connecticut, and Massachusetts, you are now under a hail threat. You originally didn't have that. As far as straight line damaging winds are concerned, we were added in that red. Let's see, the red is 30%. We were added under that 30% risk across Jefferson City down to Raleigh, over to St. Louis. So our threat has increased a little bit across central and eastern Missouri. Joplin is now under that 30% category. We've got that enhanced severe weather risk across Oklahoma and Kansas. And then again, we've got that hatched area right here, Springfield, Joplin, Nevada, under that risk for 75 mile per hour winds or greater that are going to be possible. Our main threat across this red area is going to be for 60 to 75 mile per hour winds. So a little bit lower, but still looking at a higher risk across those areas. Let's go ahead and time out these storms. This is from the NAM, Tropical Tidbits here. Let's see if we can get a more up-to-date run. Let's actually go to the HER. The HER is better for short-range forecasting. So again, we have storms today. Those clear out in about 1-2 hours. And then later this afternoon and evening, this is going to be our main threat that we're going to start to look for, is we're going to have another round of storms later this evening that's going to develop. So there's that round of storms that moves in later this evening, although most of it will stay in our far southern counties. Power outages have been a really big concern today. Wow, we're now up to 52,000 customers without power in the state of Missouri. And I believe that's the most we've ever had on a GWP live stream. We've done live streams for about 25 to 30 different days, and this is the most that we've had during one of our live streams at one time. 52,000 customers. A lot of those are in Camden County right now. Morgan County's got 4,700 outages. Camden County's at 21,000 outages. That means that half of Camden County is without power. Benton County, about 5,000 customers. St. Clair County at about 1,100 customers. Vernon County, a few power outages still there. Cass County as well. So again, power outages have certainly been a concern for today. All right, well, before we move into our next brief intermission, Just want to update you on some of the storms that we have. We still have a severe thunderstorm warning for Mares, Miller, Pulaski, and Phillips County until 3:45 p.m. And then we also have a warning that remains in effect for Boone, Callaway, Cole, and Osage County until 3:30 p.m. Both of those warnings have the risk of up to 70-mile-per-hour wind gusts with considerable threat tag on those storms. We also do still have that warning that remains in effect until 3 p.m. for Mares, Miller, Pulaski, Phillips counties for 70-mile-per-hour winds. That will be expiring, though, at the top of the hour. All right, well, this is GWP Live's ongoing severe weather coverage. We now move into another brief intermission. Don't go anywhere because we will return with more live coverage at the top of the hour. And we are back here on GWP Live's ongoing severe weather coverage. So we've got a few different active storms, a few active severe thunderstorm warnings ongoing across the area. So let's go ahead and get to that. We just had a new warning that was issued along US 50 and Interstate 44. This is now starting to move out of the viewing area, but we'll go ahead and show you it here. Severe thunderstorm warning now for Crawford, Franklin, Gasconade, Warren, Washington counties, and east central Missouri until 4 p.m. At 3:01 p.m., severe thunderstorms were located along a line from 5 miles south of Cherilus to 9 miles south of Bland, or along a line 10 miles northeast of Lynn to 16 miles southwest of Owensville, moving east at 55 miles per hour. Hazards include 70-mile-per-hour wind gusts and quarter-sized hail. So this includes Interstate 44 between exits 210 and 242. So again, now these storms are starting to move out of the viewing area. I mean, really, again, just for those who may be a little bit new here on GWP, let's go ahead and show you the viewing area the area that we watch for when it comes to severe weather. This is really the main viewing area right here. So we are, again, this new warning is not included in the viewing area. But again, these storms will continue to move further towards the east. So again, now we're looking at potentially 70-mile-per-hour and quarter-size hail out of this new round of storms. But again, there's the viewing area. So really, if you are outside of this circle, then you're not really within the area that we cover. We will sometimes talk about different weather events going on across different regions in the U.S. here, but at least the main area, the area that we track severe storms on this live stream, is within this pink circle right here. And so again, the worst of the storms have now really started to move out of our listening area. So we will soon be ending this live stream. Yeah, we'll soon be ending this live stream once these two warnings expire here. But again, warnings will continue to be issued as this line of storms continues to move further towards the east here. Again, now we've got Franklin, Crawford, Gasconade, Warren, Washington counties under this new warning until 4 p.m. So far eastern Missouri, you will continue to see the impacts from some of these storms. Now let's go ahead and get to the warnings in our viewing area. So Jefferson City, you are still under this severe thunderstorm warning, but I think the worst of the winds have now moved through your area. This remains in effect for Callaway, Cole, and Osage counties until 3:30 p.m. At 3 p.m., severe thunderstorms were located along a line from 9 miles northwest of Lynn to 19 miles south of Freeburg, or along a line from 9 miles northwest of Lynn to 31 miles south of Lynn, moving east at 35 miles per hour. 75-mile-per-hour winds and quarter-sized hail are still going to be possible. Locations impacted include Jefferson City, St. Thomas, Meta, Wardsville, Holtz Summit, into Lake McGee, New Bloomfield, and into Loose Creek as well. So Mocaine under this warning also. So that severe thunderstorm warning remains in effect until 3:30 p.m. So again, it will soon be expiring here in the next half hour or so. I will say we've seen a little bit of weakening in these storms over the last half hour. Here they were at 2:24 p.m. and then here they are now. So again, we're no longer seeing that definitive kind of bow echo that we had on the radar just a few moments ago. So again, likely not seeing as strong of winds. I mean, we still have the threat of 70-mile-per-hour winds. I'm just saying on the radar, these look a little bit less impressive than they did moments ago. All right, let me see what we've got here on the St. Louis radar site here. I just want to check a few things. We will continue I'm going to go ahead and check what we have on wind speeds. Okay, Lynn, Missouri, I'm still getting 50 to 60 mile per hour winds in Lynn, Missouri. Let's see. What do we have going on there in Lynn, Missouri? So right in there, I'm still getting some 50 to 60 mile per hour winds. We've got near Lynn, 50, 60. We go along US 50. I'm still getting some 40, 50, 50, 50 mile per hour winds. Let's see, Owensville is at about 30 miles per hour, so still along this line, we're still getting some strong winds. Let's go over to the velocities and I'll show you what I'm looking at right in here where we have the greens and the blues that are meeting up. This is where we've got some of our stronger winds around Mount Sterling as well as into Owensville, seeing some strong winds moving through. Okay, then let's go a little bit further to the south around Rolla. So let's go a little bit further south near Rolla. So let's go ahead and have to switch radar sites here to get the most accurate information. I'm not seeing as much winds right now. I mean, we're having issues. We're a little bit further away from the radar when we look here in Rolla, because here's the radar site. It's all the way in Springfield. And then Rolla's over here, but still seeing some strong wind gusts moving through. And again, some of these have been out ahead of the main line of storms. So again, there it is in Rolla. So severe thunderstorm warning still remains in effect there for about another 21 minutes. And then we also still have the warning where 70-mile-per-hour winds have been observed around Jefferson City. We have seen a lot of damage so far today in central Missouri. So these storms certainly are capable of producing damage. Wind damage has been what we have had for the most part reported out of some of these storms. Yeah, we have multiple wind damage reports. I'm just going to read off some of the new reports that we have from the Storm Prediction Center. Confirmed reports. Camdenton, large trees are down. Osage Beach, Horseshoe Bend, a huge dock broke loose. Boats are coming loose and floating away as well. Wow, this is some very serious damage that we're dealing with here around Osage Beach. We're dealing with now damage along the lake. I would say probably my biggest concern right now is how many people are outside, at the lake, celebrating the 4th of July and the 250th anniversary of the U.S. I'm just concerned with all of the different celebrations that we have going on this weekend, especially that are outside. I'm concerned about how many people may have been impacted by these storms. So hopefully we were, here's the thing. A lot of these areas, we were not anticipating storms to arrive until much later today. We were not expecting this first round to make it this far east. And so a lot of people in central Missouri were probably not expecting this today. I mean, I know that I wasn't, and I'm, forecast these storms and everything. So, I imagine that a lot of people were not anticipating that this would happen. But this is why any day that there's a risk of storms, that you always have to stay weather aware, as things can develop very quickly without warning. And that's exactly what we have seen here. There was the severe thunderstorm watch that was issued a couple hours in advance, so hopefully that gave people some notice that we're out there on the water. But this is just some very unfortunate reports that we've had that are now coming in out of Osage Beach. So again, Camden County reporting some damaged boats that came loose and have floated away. Okay, California, Missouri, and Montauk County, 6-inch tree limb snapped on the west side of California with the gust front. We've had down tree limbs in Otterville and Cooper County, Missouri. Miller County, Eldon, Missouri, we had some tree limbs. Trees on city streets and on a house. Versailles had a 58-mile-per-hour wind gust. Camden County, lots of damage around the lake. Lots of damage around that area. Versailles, tree broke and damaged the west part of Versailles. Grovis Mills in Morgan County, large tree limbs and power outages reported across those areas. Knob Noster in Johnson County, several large trees are down. Windsor, Henry County, wires and power outages down. Warrensburg, several reports of downed limbs and wires on the south side. 60-mile-per-hour winds reported in Leeton, where there was trees and limbs down. St. Clair, Missouri, in Iconium, there was a 63-mile-per-hour wind gust. Leeton had a 65-mile-per-hour wind gust. Chillowy, trees were downed. At a camp, 62-mile-per-hour winds in Calhoun and Henry County in Missouri. Henry County and Clinton, trees are down. Multiple power outages reported there. Kingsville, Chicken coop blown over. Tree limbs are down on the resident side of Kingsville. Vernon County is reporting damage in Walker, Missouri. Damage to a roof and utility poles near the Walker, Missouri area. Quick City in Johnson County, Missouri reports of downed tree limbs and debris on Route 2. Also, for those who are tuning in here in the state of Missouri, if you have any damage to report, you can drop that here in the live chat as well, or you can call and you can be live on the air here. You can call 417-448-0819. You can report any damage or any current weather conditions that you are dealing with across the area. So again, you can drop that in the live chat or you can call in. If you do call in, you will be live on the air, especially anytime that we're doing our live stream. So just understand that when you call in, you are also going to be live on the air. So if that's something you're not interested in, then something you can do. Another good way to communicate information, ask questions is down in the live chat as well. So again, if you have any damage to report, you can go ahead and do that. That just helps us to have a better idea of just how widespread this wind damage is. As again, it appears to be pretty widespread based on all these reports that we're getting in. Cass County, barn was damaged by some strong winds. Yurch, tree limbs were down. Multiple reports in Yurch. Horton and Vernon County, tree limbs were down. Harrisonville, damage was reported. Peculiar, Butler. I mean, just multiple reports here in the state of Missouri. This is probably the most widespread wind damage that we've had in the state of Missouri so far this severe weather season. Probably, again, when it comes to wind damage, we had a lot of hail back in April. We had some hail in June as well. Like we had the softball sized hail in Springfield. That was pretty significant. But as far as widespread wind damage, we really haven't had that a whole lot so far this severe weather season. We've had the threat for damaging winds, but we just really haven't seen that until today here, where we have just seen a whole lot of wind reports today. Nationally, we are sitting at 133 wind reports, 6 hail reports. We also had 2 tornadoes that were reported in Clay County, Iowa. That's on the northwest side of Iowa. So again, a lot of our wind reports today in Kansas and Missouri, but also we've had quite a few across Pennsylvania, West Virginia, and Virginia, where we're also dealing with some severe storms. So it's not just about the severe storms that we've had today in the state of Missouri, but also across many other areas where we've been experiencing that. All right, let's go ahead and look at power outages. We are at 65,000 customers without power. So yeah, quite a few power outages here in the state of Missouri. This is the most widespread power outages that we've had in the state of Missouri since we've started doing these live streams here on GWP. Camden County has the most at 21,000 outages. We've got Hickory County, 1,200 outages, 1,400 in St. Clair, 5,000 in Benton, 7,800 in Morgan. Camden County, though, has the worst of the power outages. We're sitting at 21,400 customers without power. That's about 53% of the residents there in Camden County. We also have to think about it's still very hot, and so any of these areas that are without power are also without air as well. And this is also taking place on a holiday too, so something else to consider. About a third of the power outages in the state of Missouri are in Camden County right now, so that appears to be where we got hit with the worst of the damage. Again, at the time that this happened, we were getting wind gusts estimated by radar of 70 to 80 miles per hour. So I'm not surprised that we have the damage that we're dealing with here. I will say the reason this is so surprising, in my opinion, is because this was not expected to happen. I mean, we were not expecting these storms to make it this far to the east, but that is exactly what we have seen. Morgan County, 7,700. I mean, that's 50% of the county. That's 50% of Morgan County right now that's without power. So we've seen quite a bit there. Miller County, 37% of the county, 6,200 outages. So again, total 65,000 customers are without power in the state of Missouri. We also had some wind damage earlier today in Kansas, 2,200 customers without power there in the state of Kansas. And then nationally, look at the number of power outages that we have. And again, a lot of these states are also dealing with the extreme heat too. So again, you also have to think these areas are also without power. Or I mean, are also without air. Obviously, they're without power. So 800,000 customers without power, just about without, again, around, excuse me, about 8,000 customers without power right now nationwide. That means, over 2 million people are without power. If you average, again, this is the number of households that are without power. So if you average about 3 people per household, that's 2.4 million people without power, roughly. So that's pretty significant here. Michigan, 333,000 outages, mainly across the southern part of the state. New Jersey, also pretty high on the list at 143,000. Missouri has the third most power outages in the country at about 68,000 outages. Look at all of these states that every state in the blue has at least 10,000 customers without power. We've got Arkansas at 14,000, Illinois 34,000, Ohio 27,000, West Virginia 19,000, Virginia 27,000, Pennsylvania 40,000, New York 13,000. Those are the power outages that we're dealing with right now across the country. 10 different states have at least 10,000 customers without power. So again, this has been a pretty significant windstorm that we've dealt with here, not only here across the state of Missouri, but also here across the country with some of these different severe storms. All right, so here's a look at our different alerts here. Just as a reminder, we'll go ahead and we'll redraw the viewing area. Again, if you're outside this area, we're not necessarily, we might still talk about your area. It's just we're not going to focus on it as much because you're not really in the viewing area. But here is our viewing area. So really, we just have really our far eastern areas that are still dealing with these storms. So let's go ahead and get the latest on our 2 severe thunderstorm warnings that remain in effect across the viewing area. So, east of Jefferson City, we still have a warning in effect for Callaway, Cole, and Osage County. This continues until 3:30 p.m. for 70-mile-per-hour wind gusts and quarter-size hail. Locations impacted include Osage City, Loose Creek, and into Ridge Fountain. So, we're looking at, again, a considerable threat tag with this storm, 70-mile-per-hour winds. Based on what I've been seeing on the velocities, I don't think our winds are as bad as what we were seeing out of these storms earlier today, but still, these storms have a history of producing damage, and so you need to take these warnings very seriously. And then we've also still got this warning for Rolla, Missouri that continues for another 24 minutes. Also, 70-mile-per-hour winds with a considerable threat tag with these storms as well. All right, so we've got showers continuing, Sedalia, Warrensburg, Kansas City, Columbia. We've got a few showers moving through. Not really seeing anything heavy right now. The damage has really already been done across these areas, but still seeing some light rain. A couple of storms near Springfield. Those have now started to move east. And then still we're watching these storms west of Topeka. I'm kind of shocked that we don't have any flash flood warnings in this area yet, because we've seen a lot of rainfall the last hour or two across this area. These storms will continue to move into our viewing area later this evening around 6 p.m. That's when our next round of severe storms is going to be expected. Let's look at some of the different weather alerts here that we're dealing with across the country. Got heat advisories in the orange. That's our most widespread weather alert right now. Heat index anywhere from 95 to 105 for the areas in orange. For the this purple in here that we've got, that's an extreme heat warning. That also includes St. Louis and Columbia. That continues till 8 p.m. this evening. Heat index values up around 110 to 112 are going to be possible as we go through the rest of this evening. So we cannot forget about the heat risk that we have through the rest of this evening. I am happy to say that in the state of Missouri, we will no longer be dealing with extreme heat, at least for a few days after today. So that is the good news for today. Severe thunderstorm watches across Texas, Missouri, Illinois, Ohio, Pennsylvania, New York. So again, very widespread on our severe weather today. Air quality alerts in Colorado, flood watches in Illinois, Iowa, extreme heat watches across Arizona and California. We could see actual temperatures of up to 115 degrees possible as we go into the early part of next week. So, I know that those areas are used to the heat in Arizona and California, but still, 115 degrees is pretty dangerous. Red flag warnings across Oregon and Washington. We have a low end fire threat today. The Storm Prediction Center said 1 out of 3 elevated risk for those areas. So, probably wouldn't recommend shooting off fireworks if you are in Washington, Oregon, and Utah. It's currently actually banned for this year's fireworks. So, kind of some unfortunate news there, but I mean, it's necessary in order to keep these wildfires down. Again, it's been very dry, and we've had fire threat pretty much each and every day out west for about a week to a week and a half. So, again, Spirit Thunderstorm Watch remains in effect for the majority of our viewing area until about 7 p.m. this evening. This is from the storms that are moving through right now. Again, these will be moving out about 4 p.m., but still, we do have that watch in place for ping pong ball size hail, 70-mile-per-hour winds, and some frequent lightning. Thunder roars, go indoors. Here is that Storm Prediction Center severe weather outlook. There wasn't a whole lot of changes when they updated their outlook at 3 p.m. this afternoon. We still have an enhanced risk for severe weather across Pittsburgh, Kansas into Joplin. That's a 3 out of 5 risk. The rest of the viewing area, excluding Kansas City, is under a 2 out of 5 slight risk from the Storm Prediction Center. 70-mile-per-hour winds, frequent lightning, and localized flooding will be possible. Our first round of severe storms is going to be moving out in about 30 minutes, but our second round of severe storms will be starting in a couple hours and will continue until about 4 a.m. In our viewing area, they will move out around 11 p.m. or midnight. So again, here's the afternoon round of storms, and then our second round this evening is going to be in our southern counties from about 6 p.m. until midnight, and then southern Missouri and northern Arkansas, you will see additional storms during the overnight hours. Again, we can't forget about the heat risk. Heat advisories until 8 p.m. this evening. 106 degrees is what our heat index values will be up to. So drink plenty of water, don't leave kids or pets inside an enclosed vehicle, and take frequent breaks in the shade or AC, which is probably going to be very difficult, unfortunately, for those that are without power from some of the storms that we've seen. The only good news about the storms causing all these power outages, well, not really the power outage, it's never good to have a power outage, but the only good news about if you have seen these storms is that your temperature should feel a little bit cooler. So that is the good news. Kansas City extreme heat warnings expired earlier today because these storms again cooled off our temperatures. So that is good news. But remember, know the signs of heat exhaustion and heat stroke. Also, heat exhaustion can lead to heat stroke, which can then cause death or permanent disability if emergency treatment is not given. So if you're feeling any of these symptoms, dizziness, thirst, heavy sweating, nausea, and weakness, then you need to move to a cooler area, loosen clothing, and sip some cool water. And if you're experiencing confusion, dizziness, or if you become unconscious, you need to call 911, or hopefully somebody around you will do that. You need to move to a cooler area, loosen clothing, and remove extra layers, and cool yourself down or the person with water. So if that's around. But again, heat exhaustion, heat stroke, very serious. Again, heat is the #1 weather-related killer in the United States. So you certainly want to take that very seriously. So here's all the different areas under severe weather risk from the Storm Prediction Center for today, all the way from the Central Plains to the East Coast is where we're dealing with some of those severe storms. All right, we will now move into our next brief intermission. We will return at 3:30. This is GWP Live. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back. We're back here on GWP Live's ongoing severe weather coverage. It's now 3:30 p.m. on this 4th of July holiday, and we're still tracking some ongoing severe storms. Well, really, they're starting to push into eastern Missouri out of our viewing area, and so it is for that reason that we will soon be ending this live stream. But before we do that, we're just going to go ahead and give you a quick update here on where they're at, show you just kind of around the region some of the different showers and storms that we're dealing with. So again, still dealing with some storms along Interstate 70, along US 50, east of Columbia, as well as into Jefferson City, but those storms have mainly moved east of our viewing area. We've still got severe thunderstorm warnings across Rolla, points to the east of there. These storms will be moving into St. Louis pretty soon, so we'll continue to watch that, but overall, pretty much the worst of our storms have now moved east of the viewing area. So again, a few showers ongoing across Columbia, Jefferson City. This is light to moderate, not really a big concern, but it could add to some of the rainfall that we've already had, which could lead to some additional flooding. We still have some flash flood warnings across northwestern Missouri here. Flash flood warning remaining in effect for Cass, Henry, and Johnson counties until 5 p.m. this evening. Flooding has been observed. So again, there's an observed tag on that flash flood warning. We also have one for Miami County, Kansas, and Cass County, Missouri. Up to 2.5 inches of rainfall have already fallen today, and that's part of the reason why we have some flash flood warnings in effect. Additional storms have started to develop across eastern Kansas. These will intensify in the coming hours and will move into our southern counties, where we are going to be experiencing a second round of severe storms later this evening. Here's an estimated timeline of those severe storms. So again, this morning or this afternoon severe weather risk, these storms have now moved east of our viewing area. This is no longer really a big concern, but our central and southern counties will be looking at a second round of severe storms beginning around 5 or 6 p.m. Those will continue until around 11 or midnight. Up to 70-mile-per-hour winds and hail up to quarters will be the main threats out of this evening's round of severe storms. This from the National Weather Service in Springfield, Missouri, their weather story showing these different areas that are going to be under that risk for severe storms today. Here's the Storm Prediction Center severe weather outlook. Again, 70-mile-per-hour wind gusts, frequent lightning, localized floodings. Those are going to be the main concerns. This will be going from 12 p.m. today, which is our first round of storms that has already moved through, until about 4 a.m. on Sunday morning. So this evening, storms could certainly impact any plans that you have for the 4th of July. I wouldn't cancel any plans yet, but certainly remain weather aware, have multiple ways to get different weather alerts, and stay tuned here on GWP for all of the latest update on storms as they continue to move through. All right, let's see. We've got So again, here's the different areas under the severe weather risk today. Northern Oklahoma, southern Kansas, enhanced 3 out of 5 risk for severe weather. And then we've got a slight risk for severe weather across the areas in yellow. That goes from the panhandle of Texas all the way into Massachusetts. So pretty large area under severe weather today. That being said, really nationwide, our tornado threat's pretty low, mainly across Wichita is the only area that has that 2% risk. And then we've got winds. Our southwestern counties are under that hatched area where we could be looking at 75 to 85 mile per hour wind gusts possible. Our highest wind risk nationally today is going to be along the I-95 corridors. Hopefully we won't see any major impacts to those big cities later this evening with all the different fireworks displays. Of course, there's a big one later this evening there in Washington, D.C. at the National Mall. And then there's also a big one there in New York City as well. Probably some of the most famous ones that you might know about. And then hail is mainly going to stay across Oklahoma and Kansas. It could be 2 inches and greater or greater across those areas. In our western counties, though, we will also have that low-end hail risk for today. All right, let's check in on power outages again. We're almost at 800,000 customers, with Michigan and New Jersey being at the top of the list. That being said, Missouri is still at 68,000 customers without power. Camden, Morgan, Miller, Benton, Cole, and Osage counties are towards the top of that list. Let's see if we have any new reports of damage, as we've had quite a bit of damage reported today across the state of Missouri. We just had a 75-mile-per-hour wind gust in Vichy. That's our first hurricane force gust that we've had recorded today in Missouri. In Rolla, wind damage has caused quite a bit of damage, branches down, power lines down. Lightning caused a structure fire in Rolla, Missouri. So that's another report that we got. In Miller County, Missouri, there was tree debris along Highway 17 near Iberia. And then Osage Beach, we already looked at that, but we had quite a bit of damage there in Osage Beach. In Camden County, saw some of the worst of the wind damage, 60 to 70 mile per hour wind gusts. That's part of the reason why we have all of these power outages across the area. All right, well, we'll go back to the radar again. We've still got a couple of flash flood warnings, but all of our severe warnings have now moved south and east of the viewing area. So it is for that reason that we're going to go ahead and end this live stream. Well, if we don't return here on the live stream, have a wonderful 4th of July holiday. Stay safe, stay weather aware, and we will see you next time here on GWP Live, which could be later this evening. But that is it for now here on GWP Live Severe Weather Coverage.